Chapter 4600. In the blink of an eye, they saw a black round bead leaping to the side of their ship's mast. A faint black light suddenly shrouded them. Duo Shaming's legs were slightly weak. Suddenly, he felt an irreversible force covering his body. It inexplicably pulled him forward a dozen steps. Young Master Duo. Wu Cheng was quick to react. He hurriedly waved his sword to block his way. But at this time, the clear light in Duo Shanming's eyes was completely annihilated. He seemed to only be able to see the black bead that was full of summoning power in midair. The bead slowly rotated above everyone's head. In just a short moment, Wu Cheng discovered with a horrified expression that the entire fiery nightmare ship seemed to have been pulled out of the water by someone. The hull of the ship tilted slightly as it left the water surface inch by inch, giving off a terrifying suction force as it was sucked towards the area covered by the black light. Not good. Wu Cheng decisively pulled out his sword and stabbed it through the deck of the ship, injecting all his power into it. Only then did the fiery nightmare ship, which had left the water surface, stabilize slightly. The entire ship stiffened and stood half above the water surface. Elder Liang, elderly, what are you still standing there for? Quick, come and save me. Duo Shanming was awakened by the sound of the sword stabbing. Sensing the danger, Duo Shanming was so frightened that he couldn't care less about the two beauties. He directly reached out and pushed them away, running towards the cabin. Elder Liang, elderly. Duo Shanming felt a little scared at this time. When he was in high spirits and ordered people to ram the ship, he didn't expect this at all. At the end of the cabin, the small window was broken from the inside out. Two vigorous figures suddenly appeared beside Duo Shanming. One of them stretched out his palm and pressed down on Duo Shanming's body that was involuntarily uprooted from the ground, stabilizing him on the deck. Young master, don't panic. Let this old man come and help you. Duo Shanming was slightly relieved. Just as he calmed down, he couldn't wait to clamor a Qi Xiao Song Long. Who are you? How dare you play tricks on me? Do you know who I am? I'm famous in Wang Chuan. Bang. Bang. After two loud noises, several people descended from the sky and landed directly on the deck of Huo Wu's ship. Without saying a word, they attacked Elder Liang and Elderly. The two transcendent state elders' eyes froze, and they could not help but curse in their hearts. What was going on? The five people from the other side were all on par with them. Since when did the River of Forgetfulness have so many transcendent God stage cultivators? Didn't everyone need to go to the sanctuary to be reborn? What great prospects could they have by mingling in the three continents and the land of forgetfulness? Elder Liang and Elderly were forced to retreat. Under the joint attacks of the five Transcendent Realm experts, the two of them basically lost the ability to fight back. In the end, he could only abandon the ship and was chased by the five people, forcing him out of the fiery nightmare ship. Duo Shanming, who had lost the protection of two transcendents, was like a pheasant whose feathers had been plucked. He could not resist at all. Under the black light of the heart of misfortune, Duo Shanming was the first to be sucked in. Arbor controlled the heart of misfortune in his hand and frowned. It seems it's a bit strenuous to swallow that ship. It's fine. Just nibble and swallow slowly. Duan, you encouraged with a smile. Adjust the time tomorrow. Chapter 4601. Lord Wu Cheng, run for your life. Wu Cheng's pupils shrank as he stared at the black pearl in the air. His heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Just now, he had witnessed with his own eyes how young Master Duo Shan was sucked into that strange black bead without any room for resistance. Five experts suddenly appeared on the ship, completely entangling Elder Liang and Elderly. It's the power of the God Domain. God Domain. It's the God Domain, a refined God Domain. The people on the ship panicked. Wu Cheng's body tensed up into a straight line. He had indeed thought that a person who was able to possess such a treasured vessel that was like an iron bastion would definitely not be an ordinary person. But how could he have expected that the other party would throw out a refined secret realm the moment he made a move, intending to suck them in together with the ship? The light emitted by the heart of misfortune suddenly shrunk rapidly. Wu Qing only felt that he couldn't stand steadily. The entire ship trembled violently due to an extremely strong suction force. A huge sense of danger followed. Wu Qing had no choice but to make a very difficult choice: abandon the ship and escape. Jump! Wu Qing shouted loudly, turned around, and jumped into the water. After a loud splash, his body fell heavily into the sea. When the surrounding corpse fish saw this, they all swarmed toward the people who had fallen into the water. Suddenly, the sound of fighting and cursing came from the water, accompanied by heart-wrenching cries. Wu Qing hurriedly twisted the defensive ring and opened the defensive barrier. Dozens of small zombie fish with sharp teeth swam toward him, moving as fast as an arrow. Wu Qing's eyes widened. The long saber in his consciousness naturally flew out to protect its master. He couldn't care about anything else now. The most important thing was to protect the majority of the fireworm squad. There were more than a dozen people who fell into the water with Wu Qing. 3 of them were immediately surrounded by the corpse fish as soon as they fell into the water and were accidentally bitten. When their blood dripped into the sea, it attracted even more corpse fish. The 3 people were surrounded by the corpse fish. Even though they killed a few hundred under the siege of thousands of corpse fish, they still couldn't escape quickly. Instead, more and more corpse fish gathered around them. In the end, the 3 of them were completely submerged by the corpse fish. Wu Qingbai hurriedly turned around to take a look. With a pained expression, he angrily shouted, "Let's go." He immediately led the remaining 8 or 9 brothers and fled in the opposite direction. Xiao Mu creased her brows, and it took a Herculean effort to put the entire fiery nightmare ship in her heart of misfortune. She heaved a sigh of relief as her body swayed uncontrollably. The light from the heart of misfortune immediately shrunk back, turning into an ordinary black pearl that fell into her palm. Arbor thought to himself, "It seems that this fiery nightmare ship is indeed extraordinary." After absorbing the ship, the heart of misfortune would not be able to absorb anything else for a while. "Fine, I'll let it rest for a while and have a good rest." Arbor touched the lusterless bead in his hand and stuffed it into his sleeve. He planned to use his divine sense to see what was going on inside. Second sect leader, how many people escaped from a ship? Should we send people to chase after them? No need. Arbor waved his hand. These people were nothing to be afraid of. Capturing them wouldn't be of much use. They wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. Chapter 4602. Moreover, it was because someone had provoked her in the beginning that she had retaliated. Otherwise, with the little stoic's aloof personality, she wouldn't even bother to spare a glance at strangers. In the realm of misfortune, Duo Shanming only felt the scenery before his eyes rapidly change, and the entire shaking process stopped in the blink of an eye. He was still standing at the bow of the fiery nightmare ship, with 2 delicate and beautiful girls sprawled on the ground beside him. The hairpins on the girls' heads were crooked, and their outer garments had long been blown away by the wind. At this time, the 2 of them were only wearing gauzy inner garments. As they stood at the bow of the ship, they felt chilly winds blowing around them, and gusts of chilly wind burrowed into their necks and limbs. "Young master, where is this place?" The 2 girls cried in fright. They rubbed the tiny bumps that had burrowed out of their arms and subconsciously approached Duo Shanming. Duo Shanming was also about to go crazy from fright. He naturally didn't know what had happened, so he ran to the railing of the ship in a few strides. When he leaned over to take a look, he involuntarily cried out in fright. The 2 girls also ran over and looked down as well, only to see that their ship was now inexplicably stranded on a stretch of yellow sand. There were rubble and dilapidated walls everywhere, and as far as the eye could see was thick yellow sand. There wasn't a trace of seawater in sight. What's going on here? Our ship, where did we sail to? Wu Qing. Duo Shanming roared hysterically. "Wu Qing, you old geezer, hurry and come out for this young master." "Wu Qing, elders, you promised my father that you would protect me well. Where are you?" After Duo Shanming roared a few times, he didn't see any trace of Wu Qing so he naturally didn't see Elder Liang and Elderly. Instead, he roared out a dozen shivering boatmen. Those ordinary boatmen were extremely terrified, even more terrified and astonished than Duo Shanming. Their eyes were fearful as they looked at the thick sand around them. They looked at the dried sand and rocks in front of them, as well as the piles of small rock fortresses. Young Master Duo. Young Master Duo, where are we? Young Master Duo? This seawater? Where's the seawater? Duo Shanming was also flustered, but what made him even more flustered was that Elder Liang, Elder Li, and Wu Cheng were all absent. What was he going to do now? What should he do? There's someone there. One of the boatmen suddenly pointed to the front and shouted. The speed at which the person approached was extremely fast. In just a short moment, 5 figures approached the hull of the ship. With a leap, the 5 men nimbly flipped onto the ship and landed steadily on the deck. The 5 people's eyes were sharp as they stared coldly at Duo Shanming. Duo Shanming was surprised and delighted. He hurriedly stepped forward and greeted them with a smile. Brothers, may I know where this place is? In Mountain Ghost Domain. Hell on Earth. The place where your bones are buried. Duo Shanming's eyes immediately widened, and he subconsciously took a step back. Who are you? Dude, do you know who I am? Following Master's orders, I am to take over the supervision of everyone and everything within the fireworm ship. Check the supplies. The young man who spoke coldly raised his hand, and the other 4 people quickly rushed into the cabin. What are you doing? What are you doing? The 2 girls impatiently wanted to follow in, but the young man stopped them on the spot with a cold look. Chapter 4603. The 5 young men looked very ordinary, but their murderous aura was very sharp. Their clothes had been blown by the wind and sand for a long time, and the specific color could no longer be seen. Everyone's eyes were very sharp, as if a chill was going to come out from their eyes, flickering with cold light. In just a short moment, many of the materials in the cabin had been counted and sorted into boxes. The leading young man took out a storage talisman and put everything in it. Then he turned his head and glanced at Duo Shanming coldly. Under the orders of the master, I will temporarily take over the task of guarding you. Now, everyone, stand here. Men and women, stand separately. Hurry up, and the few people hiding in the cabin, don't hide. All of you come to the deck. Young master. The 2 girls cried and grabbed Duo Shanming's arm. Now that Duo Shanming could barely take care of himself, how could he have the leisure to care for a beautiful woman? He hurriedly threw their hands away and cried out in panic, Brothers, brothers, I am the young master of the Duo clan of Wangchuan. What do you want? Materials? Money. I have all of these. I can give all of them to you, but I beg you to show me a way out. The 5 young men ignored him, and one of them stepped forward and grabbed Duo Shanming. Seeing that the situation was not right, Duo Shanming made up his mind, and his eyes were filled with anger. Just as he summoned a weapon from his consciousness, he saw his spiritual weapon being grabbed by an invisible giant claw and thrown far away. Dong! It hit the deck of the bow. How could this be? Duo Shanming was stunned, and his face was distorted as he looked at the spiritual weapon. He desperately used his spiritual sense to summon it back. Oh, don't waste your energy. Recognize the reality. In this place, it is useless no matter how powerful your cultivation is. A young man sneered and said, Young Master Duo of the Wangchuan Dragon Clan, right? He went up and slapped Duo Shanming's face. Duo Shanming was so dizzy that he almost slipped and fell to the ground. The 2 girls did not dare to speak. They trembled and squatted at the side, biting the corner of the silk, and their eyes were full of panic. This slap is to teach you a lesson for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth and for being disrespectful to Master. Stand properly. Men and women, stand on one side. Do you not understand human language? A few women and 2 or 3 children who wanted to cry, but didn't dare to cry out loud, were hurried up from the lower cabin. They should be the family members of some boatmen. They trembled as they stood on both sides. The boatmen's eyes were filled with fear as they cowered behind Duo Shanming. Duo Shanming was also panicking. He pushed the boatman next to him and said, You stand over there. Husband, father, The cries of women and children followed. The boatman lost his footing and fell to the ground with a plop, coincidentally landing at the feet of a young man. The man was so scared that his whole body trembled, and he cried bitterly in his heart, "My life is over." However, the young man only lowered his head and glanced at him. Then, he said indifferently, "Stand over there. Stand properly." "Yes, yes." The group of people stood on the deck timidly and looked at each other without knowing why. They didn't know why they were made to stand here, and they didn't know what they were waiting for. Chapter 46:04. Not long after, the young man in the lead cupped his hands and bowed towards the southeast. "The boatmen and their families on this ship, please stand in the middle." The young man then turned around and said to the crowd. The boatmen and women were all frightened. They quickly knelt down and kowtowed with an inexplicable look on their faces as they exclaimed, "Spare us. Please spare us, master. Don't kill us. Don't kill us." The shouting suddenly stopped. A few young men walked forward and gave them some spirit coins and silk. Then they said, "Under the orders of our master, we're here to give you some money to calm you down. This has nothing to do with you. We just caught you by mistake." The young man said, "Don't panic. You'll be able to leave soon." The boatmen were stunned. Seeing this, Duo Shanming swallowed his saliva and quickly pointed at his nose and shouted, Then what about me?" "Umph, young Master Duo, you're so bold. You dare to order your ship to crash into my master's ship. Naturally, you've already expected the consequences." Duo Shanming roared angrily. "Just because of that? It's just a joke. Who exactly is your master?" "A joke?" The young man looked at him with a half-smile and nodded. "My master hates it when people joke with her. Do you think it's funny to throw you into the realm of misfortune for life if you joke? You can continue to joke around. The entire realm of misfortune will become your paradise. Young Master Duo, let me give you a word of advice. Don't let your imagination run wild." What do you mean?" Duo Shanming suddenly saw the boatmen and their families and children being sucked up by a suction force in an instant. A thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately understood what was going on. It should be that the master wanted to send the boatmen and their families out. Damn it! Why can these lowly commoners leave this place? Yet I, a dignified young master of the Duo clan of Wangchuan, just have to stay here and suffer. Unfair, it's too unfair. Duo Shanming suddenly pounced forward. The young men were caught off guard and were pounced on by Duo Shanming. They saw Duo Shanming pouncing on a child and grabbing the child's neck with a ferocious expression. Originally, the little boy was being lifted up by a light buoyancy force and was slowly rising. At this moment, Duo Shanming, who had pounced on him, grabbed him by the neck. He felt his body sink and was immediately choked to tears. Duo Shanming was very happy to feel that his body had become much lighter. It was this irresistible force. He had to leave this damn place, no matter what method he used. Young Master Duo, young Master Duo. When the two girls saw that he had completely abandoned them and only knew that he was running away, they couldn't help but cry out in alarm. "Damn it! Send me out! Send me out!" Duo Shanming shouted angrily, urging the layer of floating light beneath his feet to send him out of the secret territory. The youths couldn't help but sneer. After being in the realm of misfortune for so long, Duo Shanming still hadn't recognized the reality. This Duo Shanming was really an idiot. They looked coldly at Duo Shanming, wondering what kind of suffering he would suffer. Sure enough, in just a moment, Duo Shanming was like a kite with a broken string as he was flung away by a powerful force. He landed heavily on the deck of the ship, looking battered and exhausted. The spirit weapon that was originally stuck at the bow of the ship suddenly jumped up. Chapter 46:05. Duo Shanming's expression changed drastically, and he was about to reach out to catch his saber. However, that spirit weapon was completely out of his control and fell straight down, scaring him into scrambling backwards. The saber landed between his legs with a clang, scaring him into pissing his pants. His eyes rolled back, and he almost fainted. When those boatmen regained their senses, they suddenly heard the sound of crashing waves. When they focused their eyes, they simultaneously returned to a spacious deck, and before them was a vast expanse of mist. The azure sky and white clouds, along with the sea breeze that assailed their faces, made them excited. They were back. They were finally back. It was no longer that scene of yellow sand and thick soil, with wind-dried, broken walls and ruins. The boatmen only felt like they had walked through a dream and circled the gates of hell before returning to reality in a split second. They were endlessly sad and joyful. No need to panic, everyone. I've already prepared a ship for you. Please follow me. A gentle voice entered everyone's ears. The boatmen looked back and saw an elegant and handsome young man. They immediately thanked him obsequiously and followed him in a single file. Arbor stood in front of the railing on the second floor as she watched vassal Prince Roan leave with his people. She softly muttered, "Truly an undeserved calamity." "It's fine." Duan Yu smiled faintly and said, "Just have someone send them back to their village. Can you leave the rest to me?" "No need to worry." Arbor blinked and nodded. However, she secretly cursed in her mind, "I have to be more careful in the future. Don't bring disaster to innocent people and bring misfortune into the realm of misfortune." If she hadn't discovered it in time, those normal people might have lost their lives. That would be very inappropriate. Don't blame yourself too much. Give them some compensation, and they'll definitely be happy. Ding Yin turned to look at her and said with a faint smile when he saw the little stoic's gloomy expression. The little stoic leaned against the railing and propped up her chin with one hand as she watched the slowly departing passenger ship. Rongqing's movements were very swift. She had already arranged the ship and people to send them off so quickly. "You don't understand." After a long time, so long that Duan Yu and Ding Yin thought that the little fellow wouldn't speak, she suddenly spoke. "Humph. You people in positions of power have never suffered any hardships in your lives. Naturally, you don't know what the mentality of the people at the bottom are. Some injuries." Arbor seemed to have thought of something. He sneered and said indifferently, "It's useless no matter how much compensation you give me." Duan Yu was startled as he recalled his and Lian's conjecture. Perhaps this little girl really did have a past life. Duan Yu was not surprised by her words at all. Young Master Ding didn't know that. Instead, he couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. He turned his head to look at her and said softly, "You make it sound like you used to be at the bottom." According to the investigation, the little girl's life experience was actually quite rich. She was accepted into the Holy Water sect at the age of 7 and became the crown princess at the age of 15. With the Holy Water sect taking care of her in the front and Mo Lien taking care of her in the back, she probably wouldn't be living at the bottom. Arbor looked into the distance and muttered to himself, "It can't be repaired." His eyes were fixed on the sea surface in the distance. The seaside fishing village is up ahead. Ming Yasi strode over. When he saw Duan Yu, who had turned around, he threw him a cold glance without the slightest trace of politeness. "What are you guys chatting about here? Are you planning to continue dawdling? Let's set off." Chapter 4606. When Arbor looked up, he saw Long Qian and Long Shangyun quickly walking up behind the two brothers, Ming Yasi and Ali. Both of their expressions were a bit odd, and they looked like they wanted to say something but were hesitant. "What is it?" Arbor absent-mindedly glanced at the two of them. Long Shangyun took a deep breath and inexplicably stuttered, Just now, the round bead was could it be a refined mystic realm? You caught that fellow from the Forget Chuan Duo clan?" Long Shangyun didn't understand why, but when she looked at the little stoic's cold and aloof face, her words lacked confidence. "You want to plead for that trash?" Arbor brusquely swept her a glance. "Who is he to you? Husband?" "Of course not." Long Shangyun's small face flushed red, and she indignantly shook her head and said, "He's merely a libertine from the Forget Chuan Duo clan." How could I take a fancy to that kind of person?" "It's best if you're not." Arbor expressionlessly interrupted Long Shangyun and coldly said, "This person is audacious and presumptuous, provoking us for no reason. Since he can't restrain himself, then let reality teach him how to behave." Long Shangyun choked on her words. Long Qian's expression was also a bit awkward. He was truly convinced. There were always a few good-for-nothings among the grand patrician families in Forget Chuan. They were like rat feces that couldn't be dug out cleanly. Never mind that they usually rode roughshod over Forget Chuan, but now they actually blindly courted disaster on the little crown princess head. Was the little crown princess someone who could speak nicely with you? She had always been the kind of ruthless person who would either not fight you or beat you to death. She wouldn't let you off just because the adults in your family were powerful. Prepare to disembark. Arbor turned around and was about to leave when he was stopped by Long Chin's light cough. Younger cousin, what? You want to plead for that big idiot? The corner of Long Huan's mouth twitched. Cousin, the Wang Chuan duo clan is usually well-behaved. Their young master's words and actions are indeed a little too much. Forget Chuan duo clan. They can even be compared to pirates. How good can they be? Arbor rudely interrupted him. Could it be that the Fireworm team isn't a pirate ship that had been roaming the Wangchuan River for many years? Long Shangyun said angrily. Indeed, I did not expect that the famous pirate group of the River of Forgetfulness was actually a member of the Sea Sharks under Lord Wuchang. Arbor glanced at the siblings and didn't ask anything. The old affairs of Wang Chuan had nothing to do with her. She did not have the habit of getting to the bottom of things. Wuchang was once a great general of Wang Chuan. Long Huan sighed and turned his head to look at Arbor that passed by him. Back then, due to a misunderstanding, Wuchang left with some of the sea sharks. It was only today that we learned that he had formed a fireworm squad. I've been on the surface of the sea for many years. Why are you telling me this? Arbor's expression was disinterested. He turned to look at Long Huan. Do you think I'm such a compassionate person? Whether other people are doing well, whether they are pirates or not, what they have done, it has nothing to do with me. Especially the trivial matters of Wang Chuan. They have nothing to do with me. The path was chosen by oneself. How one walked was also chosen by oneself. Since he chose the path of pirates, his hands must have been stained with the blood of many normal merchants. Chapter 46:07. The Wangchuan duo clan clearly knew that the Fireworm Squad was a pirate group at sea, but they still mingled with them. What could it be? Could it be to rid the world of violence and pacify the people? Who would believe it? Long Huan was momentarily at a loss for words. After a while, he said with a wry smile, "It's fine if cousin doesn't want to hear it, but the Wangchuan duo clan isn't easy to deal with. You captured their little young master. You're talking about that idiot?" "Huh." Arbor snorted and turned to walk toward the ship's hold. Pausing halfway, Arbor said coldly, "I've never met this person before and have no interactions with him. He insisted on seeking death, so I'm merely fulfilling his wish." Long Huan sighed. He knew that he wouldn't be able to persuade his cousin to release him if he continued speaking, so he could only watch as she entered the ship's hold and ordered someone to assemble. A moment later, Arbor left behind more than half of the soldiers and had Huang, he, and the others stay on the ship and await orders. Meanwhile, Shi, Duan Yu, Ming Yasi, and the others led tens of thousands of soldiers and disembarked from the ship and landed at the seaside fishing village. It was noon, and the sky was very bright. The half-round golden sun emitted a dazzling radiance as it landed on the surface of the sea, emitting specks of starlight. Arbor landed on the beach adjacent to the seaside village with a leap. The sand here was very coarse and spread out like rubble under their feet. Not only was it hard to step on, but it was also uneven. If she hadn't purposely worn a pair of thick-soled shoes, her feet would definitely hurt. Qi Xianxian kicked the sand under her feet and looked around in confusion. Why is it so quiet? Could it be that no one lives in this fishing village? Everyone, be careful. Air Rong loudly reminded the Kill Heavenly Fate's squad members behind him. Today's operation has a time limit of 2 hours. Do your best to loot as many resources as possible and clean up the remaining wandering zombies in the village. If you discover traces of Medicine Man bombs, do not act on your own. You must immediately report to us and let us know before making a decision. If there are no anomalies, everyone will gather here in 2 hours and count the spoils. As usual, the top 100 teams will receive additional rewards. Yes, 100 teams, 100 people per team. After so many days of cooperative training on the deserted island, the Killing Tianyun battle team had already found the key to the operation. As soon as Crown Prince Rong gave the order, they quickly moved. The captains of each team led their own team members and quickly picked a direction, carefully searching the village. Arbor raised his head and looked at the signboard of the fishing village that was hanging not far away. He frowned slightly. Jojo, let's go in and take a look too. Chi Xian, Little Fatty, and the rest were already itching to go in and take action. Arbor glanced at them and nodded. I feel that this place, there was an indescribable feeling. The chirping of insects and the chirping of birds seemed to be very normal. However, she had a very bad feeling. It was as if danger was lying dormant in front of her eyes, but she was very confused as she approached this danger step by step, yet she still did not know what the danger was. Jojo, what's wrong? Duan couldn't help but turn to ask softly when he saw her unwell expression. Arbor glanced at him and reflexively stroked his chest. He let out a long sigh. I don't know, it doesn't feel good. As soon as he arrived here, he felt like his chest was being crushed by a huge rock. Chapter 46:08. That huge rock pressed down on her chest, making her feel an inexplicable sense of discomfort. Arbor knew this feeling very well. In her previous life, whenever danger came, she would always have a premonition, just like the current situation. Chi Xuanchuan's expression was solemn, as if she was facing a great enemy. She crossed her arms in front of her and looked around cautiously. Jojo, are we still going in? Everyone looked at her and could not help but twitch their mouths. She seemed to have a mysterious confidence in Jojo. Once Jojo said that he sensed danger, she would immediately believe him and put on a serious expression, as if a lion would jump in front of them. Cough, Xian. Little Fatty pulled his wife's hand back embarrassedly. What? Chi Xuanchuan's face remained guarded. She glanced at the crowd and harumphed. Don't be so paranoid. According to my understanding of Jojo, what she said might not be groundless. Jojo's intuition was so accurate that it made people's hair stand on end. In short, they had to be alert at all times in case of an emergency. Let's go in and take a look. The 100 teams to kill the Heavenly Fate had already entered, so it was naturally impossible for Qiao Mu to stay outside with her people and wait for news. She was never the kind of person who would let her comrades fight alone. Rong Qing sent a message to the teams. Tell them not to move when they encounter something they cannot identify. Send a message to us. Crown Prince Rong nodded. As he walked, he ordered a few of his bodyguards to send messages to the small teams that were going to kill the Heavenly Fate organization. The group entered the seaside fishing village. They looked around and saw that the village was not small. There were brick houses on both sides, and at a glance, there were more than 100 stone houses. Some of the houses even had fish drying in front of their doors. However, it seemed that it had been a while, and the fish had long dried up. Arbor and her men walked slowly into the village and followed a dirt road in the middle. Could it be that Chi Xianxian's overly suspicious and vigilant expression had affected them? Everyone felt a chill run down their spines suddenly. A faint sound came from the left, as if a string that had been stretched taut was suddenly cut in half. Ollie abruptly jumped up as if he had been electrocuted and let out a cry of alarm. The little stoic kicked his calf without another word and shouted in a low voice, "What are you shouting for? Do you want to draw out all the things hiding in the dark?" These people were really annoying. Every time there was an operation, there would always be some idiots who would shout and shout in the team, as if they had never seen the world. It had been so many years since the corpse puppet had appeared in the world. She should have understood everything that she should have seen and understood, right? If he wanted to survive in this world, shouldn't he be familiar with the habits of the corpse puppets? Ollie's face darkened. You what? Arbor glanced at Ming Yas. Keep your retarded brother in check. Asa, why do I suddenly feel like I've lost all face? Brother. Ollie looked at his elder brother with an aggrieved expression. Ming Yas irritably smacked him. What were you shouting for just now? I saw over there. Yes. There was movement over there. Ollie pointed at the brick wall on the side. Chapter 46:09. Everyone looked in the direction of his finger and saw a skinny rat crawling out from behind the brick wall. It flapped its wings twice and then burrowed back into the crevice. This time, everyone turned their heads and looked at Ollie as if they were looking at an idiot. Ming Yasi's handsome face was completely black, and he grumpily shouted at his younger brother, "Don't be alarmed if it's nothing. Look carefully first." This was simply humiliating to death. His dignified younger brother, Ming Province's crown prince, was actually scared into such a panic by a rat that didn't even have 2 tails of meat. This was simply unbecoming. Ollie knew that he was in the wrong, so he sullenly shrunk his neck and sneaked a peek at the expressionless little stoic. After this stoic face entered this place, he didn't know if it was his misconception, but he felt that she was even colder than usual. That small face was eerily cold, and when her gaze swept past him, he could practically feel the ice shards pulsating faintly within. Ollie shrunk his neck, but he felt a chill invade his entire body. This stoic face was too frightening. What did she look like? She was like a moving jade, ice statue that only knew how to move forward, and her eyes didn't reveal the slightest bit of tenderness. Everyone stealthily peeked at the silent little stoic and silently warned themselves. The little stoic's mood is definitely not good right now. Don't provoke her no matter what, lest they become the next cannon fodder after Ollie. Everyone's advancing speed slightly increased. After entering the village, they followed the dirt path forward. After walking for about 4 to 5 minutes, several forks appeared in front of them. "How does the group move?" the little crown princess suddenly asked. Rongqing looked down at the jade messenger talisman. There are probably over 1,000 people living in this fishing village. There's also a forest and spacious farm behind the village. Our groups split up and moved out. Rongqing pointed at a group of people that had circled out from behind the brick house. There are 10 groups left here to search from house to house. The other groups are advancing towards the forest and far behind. That area is a bit spacious, and it said that the farm is quite large. "Then let's go to the forest and take a look," Arbor said indifferently as he glanced at the stone house behind him. There were so many houses here. 10 teams should have enough people to stay behind and search. It was mainly because she had a feeling that something was going to happen in this fishing village. Just as everyone was heading into the forest, they suddenly heard a sharp whistle. Hearing this voice, everyone couldn't help but tense up. The whistle was ear-piercing, but it was also very sobering. When Arbor heard it, his face immediately changed. "How is it?" Duanyu noticed her abnormal expression and hastily asked, "Did this sound injure your divine senses?" Arbor shook his head. "I'm fine." However, Long Shangyun, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but sway. A trace of blood trickled down from the corner of her lips, but she didn't even notice it. "Shield your own conscience," Duanyu instructed gravely. "This whistle is harmful." Arbor was very familiar with this whistle. He had heard it more than once when he entered the underground village. "There's an ambush here." Arbor finally realized what he was panicking about. Activate the defensive barrier. As it turned out, it was the people of the Providence Empire who had planted the human bombs. They had predicted that they would come to eliminate the human bombs inside the village. Hence, they set up an ambush here from the start. Chapter 46:10. This familiar move reminded Arbor of someone. Mu Qingya. This woman had only been quiet for a few days, and she was already scheming against her again. She wanted to attack her and set up layers of ambushes just to bait her. What a good plan. Now that they had shed all pretense of cordiality, Arbor didn't care what this woman would do. And that woman didn't seem to want to continue hiding. She openly bared her fangs, revealing her ferocious face. She was like a rat hiding in a smelly ditch, running out from time to time and squeaking at people. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, she hurriedly shrunk back into the ditch. This made Arbor very unhappy. By now, Xiao Mu was completely aware of what this woman coveted from her. The 10,000-year-old mermaid, Pearl, really made people crazy. She didn't know if this cunning woman had gotten the information from her mother, Long Chuyun, but she really wanted to steal it all these years. A cold glint flashed across Arbor's eyes when she thought of this. This hateful woman was slippery by nature and always changed places after a battle. She couldn't catch her people. Arbor thought that this woman should be on the sea right now and shouldn't be too far away from her. Thus, she could adjust her plans at any time. Fight! Little Fatty carried his double-headed hammer and rushed forward first, exchanging glances with a zombie that was pouncing at him. Little Fatty's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. With a swing of his hammer, he chopped off the corpse puppet's head on the spot. The group of people behind him hurriedly dodged, avoiding the bone fragments that the corpse puppet shot out in all directions. Qi Xianxian hurriedly took out a piece of cloth to cover her face and muttered, "So fucking disgusting. If I hadn't dodged in time, I would have eaten a mouthful of zombie mud." Tui, tui, tui. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but shudder. She instantly felt a trace of bitterness between her nose and the depths of her throat. Sikong Fuling drew her longsword from her conscious and chopped off a zombie's hand that was leaning against the wall. She turned to glance at Qi Xianxian and curled her lips. What a spoiled temper. Who are you calling spoiled? A purple light flashed in Qi Xuanquan's hand, and a bolt of lightning shot out. In an instant, the corpse puppets in front of her were chopped into pieces. Sikong Fuling's eyes lit up as she stared at the sword in Qi Xuanquan's hand. Is this a divine artifact? Qi Xianxian was currently chopping the zombie in front of her. When she heard Sikong Fuling's words, she couldn't help but nod proudly. That's true. She glanced sideways at Sikong Fuling. Sikong Fuling, how about we make a bet? What bet? Let's see who can chop off more zombie heads later. Sikong Fuling curled her lips in disdain. Your artifact is much more powerful than mine. Isn't this unfair to me? I don't need this sword. Qi Xianxian said seriously. Fuck, how many zombies are gathered here? Will they kill us until our hands go soft? Ma Tao was killing zombies with all his might. His gaze shifted, paused, and pointed to the ground. Come quickly. These things are crawling out from underground. We have to find their entrance and exit. We have to destroy that passageway. Otherwise, these monsters would continue to crawl out from the ground like an endless stream. Sikong Fuling, how about it? Chapter 4611. Sikong Fuling really didn't want to agree to this fellow's request, because she felt that this guy was the same as Xiaomu. He had dug a hole and was probably waiting for her to jump into it. Was she that stupid? How could she not see the mischievous intent lingering in this fellow's eyes? Sikong Fuling was just about to shake her head when she saw Qi Xuanquan's disdainful gaze. For a moment, Lady Sikong's blood rushed to her head. She originally wanted to refuse, but the words that came out of her mouth became, "Do you think I'm afraid of you? Let's compete." All right, Lady Sikong, let's begin then. We'll use the corpse puppet's head as proof. Sikong Fuling said with a cold expression, "Why aren't you putting away your artifact? We agreed just now that you can't use this artifact." I know. Qi Xianxian nodded and kept the purple light artifact soared back into her conscious. She said with a serious expression, "I said I won't use the purple light, so I naturally won't use it. Don't worry, Lady Sikong. I, Qi Xianxian, am upright and definitely won't cheat you." Sikong Fuling's small body trembled inexplicably. She had a feeling that she had already been cheated by Qi Xianxian. "See you later. I'm going to kill the corpse puppets." Qi Xianxian waved at her and skipped ahead. Sikong Fuling thought that something was wrong. Now that the situation was chaotic, who knew if this Qi Xianxian would secretly use that artifact after leaving her sight? The power of an artifact could never be underestimated. She had to follow Qi Xianxian all the way. Sikong Fuling's speed wasn't slow as she followed Qi Xianxian with flying steps. Arbor expressionlessly chopped a disgusting corpse puppet that was covered in mucus. She glanced sideways and saw Qi Xianxian happily running past her. Sikong Fuling followed closely behind, killing the corpse puppets that surged in front of her as she shouted, "Qi Xianxian, where are you going? I've already killed 18 corpse puppets. You'll lose if you keep running around like this." Haha. Qi Xianxian summoned a frying pan from her conscious with a flash of light. Arbor looked at the thing in her eyes, and his face darkened. "Qi Xianxian, don't use the guy who cooks to shoot zombies, bang." Qi Xian didn't say a word as she smashed the corpse puppet's head with the wok. Arbor, Mata couldn't help but scream, "Damn, Xian, are you crazy? After being slapped by you like that, do you think I'll still dare to cook an egg next time? Cut the crap." Qi Xian smashed a corpse puppet to death with her wok. She was in the middle of smashing it to death when she heard Mata's clamor. She threw him a cold glance with her tiger head. "Fucking boiled eggs. I'll cook you like an egg." Qi Xian poured the wok down and easily dealt with a few corpse puppets. Sikong Fulling, who had swiftly caught up, stared at the frying pan in Qi Xuan's hand and finally found her voice. This frying pan is? Were her eyes playing tricks on her? Judging from the material of the frying pan and the faint glow it was emitting, why did she feel like it was a divine tool? "Oh, you talking about this frying pan?" Qi Xian looked back and forth at the frying pan in her hand and said happily, "I heard Jojo say that this is what Xian Kun." She frowned and thought for a while, only to hear Arbor calmly interject, "It's a divine tool." "Oh, right, this frying pan is a divine tool." Chapter 46:12. Qi Xian flattened the head of a zombie in front of her and chuckled. "As expected, it's very useful." Sikong Fulling speechlessly looked up at the sky. If he still didn't realize that she had been tricked by the little girl in front of her at this point, then she would truly be too foolish. How many divine weapons did this fellow have on her? How could she break the rules and cheat like this? She said she wasn't going to use that purple sword, but in the end she casually pulled out a frying pan from her pocket, and that was a great divine weapon. Fuck, what kind of people were these? Since when did divine artifacts become cabbages on the roadside stalls? Could they just grab a bunch of them casually? Arbor silently glanced at Sikong Fulling's expression and could only mourn for her in his heart. To be honest, when he saw Xian tricking Sikong Fulling, Sir Jojo was still a bit amused. Qi Xian didn't give Sikong Fulling a chance to react and repeatedly chopped at the zombies' heads with a frying pan. A round little white squirrel was currently sweeping through the battlefield, leaping back and forth around everyone's feet. Its furry little arms were wrapped in a floral cloth. It picked up the zombie crystal cores on the ground and casually wiped them with a rag before tossing them into the floral cloth bag. Its movements were quite adept and very swift, so no one noticed it at first. Everyone was fighting with all their might against the zombies, so they didn't think to collect those zombie crystal cores of various colors scattered on the ground. By the time someone wanted to collect the crystal cores, they discovered that the crystal cores were long gone. A little fat squirrel was wagging its 8 furry tails. It arched around their feet and jumped up and down. It was very agile. A ring of light silver high-level zombie crystal cores had already fallen around Duan Yu and He-chun. When the little fat squirrel saw them, it eagerly jumped over and collected all the crystal cores around them. Little Tai Sui couldn't resist rolling its eyes. "You really came from the same path as your master." The fat squirrel turned its head and glanced at him with its beady black eyes before chirping in protest. He-chun couldn't resist covering his face. This freaking sacred beast had no moral integrity when it acted cute. You can speak human language, all right? Yet you like to pretend to be a harmless little animal. Chirp, chirp. Arbor turned around and hurriedly chirped at it. The little fat squirrel jumped quickly and high, and in an instant, it was on Arbor's arms. The fire spirit in Arbor's hand moved, and the blue spiritual cleansing flame killed a little zombie that was as tall as a 5-year-old child. He coldly said, "Be careful. These little zombies will hide in the big ones' stomachs or carry them on their backs. They might jump out and attack at any time." "Oh, you scared me to death." The peony fairy patted her chest and cried. "Everyone come over quickly. We found the underground passage." Little Fatty shouted from outside the crowd. Everyone quickly gathered around him. "Quick, use the fire spirit, burn. Let's see if they can climb out of the sea of fire." A member of the killing team hurriedly roared and shot out a line of fire, burning towards the entrance of the underground tunnel. His team members heard him and gathered together. The fire spirit master and the team immediately walked to the front and threw out fire spirits, attacking the underground tunnel together. At the same time, Arbor looked up with a slight frown. Duan Yu, little Tai Sui, and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal were also looking up at the roof. From here, one could see the corner of a white robe fluttering in the wind. Clang! The crisp sound of a zither flowed down from the roof, jolting everyone's minds. Chapter 46:13. The little fat squirrel squatted on Arbor's shoulder and stomped its little paws, but she pressed it down with one hand. Don't move. Chirp, chirp. The little fat squirrel shook its 8 furry tails. Master, master, I've already recovered my 8 tails. The implication was, I'm already very strong and can properly protect master. However, Arbor still shook her head. You're too small. Stay here properly. We can resolve the matters here. If it weren't for the fact that she wanted Chirp to come out and pick up scraps, Arbor wouldn't have let it out. It would be too late for regrets if anything happened to it in this kind of place where corpse poison was rampant. She had to properly protect her little companions. The little fat squirrel couldn't help but blink. Even in Master's eyes, the group of cute little creatures around her were very, very, very weak. No matter how powerful they could display previously, once little Master labeled them as cute little creatures, they would be included in the list of protected species. The little fat squirrel looked down at its furry little body. Before it could think carefully, a series of rapid whistles came from the air. Arbor looked up and saw that the white-clothed figure had already leaped down from the eaves. From afar, he had the air of a scholar and the appearance of a distinguished scholar, but up close he appeared extremely frightening. Not only was his face full of bumps and hollows, but this zither-playing corpse puppet's relatively intact long hair had also been shaved off by half after 2 battles. In fact, Arbor had recognized that person at a glance when he was standing on the roof. It was mainly because this person was too eye-catching, and he was the only zither-playing and cultured corpse puppet they had encountered recently. He was truly easy to recognize. The zither-playing corpse puppet had returned and even gathered such a large group of subordinates to encircle and annihilate them. As expected, it really was something that would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, Arbor thought. She then turned to Duan Yu and shouted, "Kill!" Duan Yu nodded. After exchanging a glance with He Shurchin, the two of them dashed forward in the blink of an eye, attacking at the zither-playing corpse puppets neck one after the other at lightning speed. On the other side, Chi Xuanchuan's hands were weak from all the killing. She couldn't help but shake her frying pan. "Fatty, quick, come and give me a hand." Chi Xianxian panted heavily as she called out. She took the opportunity to sit down. Fortunately, they had the foresight to bring 30,000 people from the Heavenly Fate Battle Group to encircle and annihilate them. Otherwise, his group would be besieged by the corpse puppet army. It was truly an eye-opener to see so many undead puppets hidden under this small fishing village. Arbor carried the little fat squirrel and kicked away the piles of white bones that were blocking the way. He took a few steps forward and stared fixedly at Duan Yu and Chang Chun, who were currently in a fierce battle with the zither-playing corpse puppet. Currently, the two of them had the upper hand by working together. The zither-playing corpse puppet had long gained sentience, so it already had thoughts of retreating due to the powerful enemy's attack. The more Arbor watched, the more alarmed he became. It hadn't been many days since this zither-playing corpse puppet first attacked them on the surface of the sea, but this corpse puppet's abilities had soared by leaps and bounds. It was as if it had eaten a quick-acting energy pill. What the hell could cause a corpse puppet's level to soar so rapidly? While Arbor was pondering, he suddenly felt a gust of strong wind above his head. Duan Yu, He Chun, and the others cried out in alarm, "Jojo, get out of the way." Chapter 46:14. Arbor suddenly sensed a gust of wind assaulting her from above. She narrowed her eyes, and 2 cold glints shot out her eyes. However, she saw a 4-winged, 3-eyed freak appear above her in the air. It carried a gust of strong wind that was enough to raise a gale of 5 kilometers. Arbor stood steadily, and the corner of her plain clothes fluttered high in the fierce gale. This freak's claws were like an eagle's, and its body was as robust as a calf's. Its neck was slender, and its head was mutated. With a cursory glance, one could tell that it was a four-winged harpy that had undergone special modifications. It was incredibly ugly. It was truly incredibly ugly. After glancing at it, Xiao Mu felt her stomach turn sour, and a nauseating feeling assaulted her. This feeling made her want to vomit uncontrollably. Looking at this four-winged mutated harpy up close, it was truly too disgusting. Its facial features seemed to have been blended together, and its eyes, nose, and mouth were squeezed tightly to the center. At first glance, all of its facial features were present, but at second glance, it felt strange and ugly, making people loathe it. The little stoic activated her eggshell defensive barrier almost at the same time that the harpy's claws reached for her. Crack! The crisp sound of metal colliding entered everyone's ears. The four-winged harpy's claws were as sturdy as cold iron, and they scratched a mark on the little stoic's defensive barrier. At the same time, a water arrow attacked the four-winged harpy. Even though the harpy had a head of copper and arms of iron, and its entire body was as thick as steel plates, it reflexively shrunk its neck when it saw the water arrow attacking it. It flapped its wings and flew high into the sky, dodging it instantly. Duan Yu arrived very quickly, and he appeared next to the little stoic in the blink of an eye. He retracted the water arrow in his hand. Through the defensive barrier, he happened to see the little stoic raise her small hand and wink at him. For words were written on the little stoic's hand. Push the boat with the current. Duan Yu glanced at it, and his handsome face immediately darkened. No. He withdrew his smile and flatly refused. He raised his hand and passed through the defensive barrier, grabbing her wrist without a second word. In the blink of an eye, the zither-playing corpse puppet abruptly jumped 3 feet into the air with that tattered zither in hand. An out-of-tune zither note abruptly sounded, and it carried strands of energy as it blasted towards Duan Yu's direction. The little stoic raised her hand to push him and blinked at him while saying, "Hurry up and go." She then conveniently took a step back. Duan Yu's anger flared up, and he turned around to grab her. Just as he said, "You're not allowed to mess around," he casually blocked and caught the zither-playing corpse puppet's claws. Shocking waves instantly surged in Duan Yu's beautiful peach blossom eyes. He said coldly, "You can die now." The zither-playing corpse puppet let out a shrill howl, calling for the other corpse puppets to gather around and protect them. But it was too late. Duan Yu's fingers moved slightly, and a rising silver-white flame instantly burned along the zither-playing corpse's withered arm. A group of people who had come to kill the Heavenly Fate Squad after hearing the news had gathered together in an organized manner. They opened up a path from all directions and moved closer to the center. At this moment, he suddenly heard an extremely strange and shrill wail. Everyone's heart tightened slightly, and they subconsciously raised their heads to look at the source of the sound. They were greatly shocked by what they saw. They saw a white figure floating in the air with his back facing them. At this moment, his entire body was surrounded by a strange silver-white flame. It was him who had let out this human-like wail. His voice gave people goosebumps. Chapter 46:15. Everyone couldn't help shuddering when they saw this scene. That thing was currently completely surrounded by a silvery white flame and could only roll back and forth in the air, looking abnormally unlucky. Sikong Fulling tightened her grip on the sword in her hand and reflexively glanced at her elder brother. Young Master Ding was looking in that direction with an indecipherable expression. His gaze seemed to be fixated on that zither-playing zombie, and he didn't return to his senses for a long time. At this moment, all the zombies present inexplicably quieted down and didn't make a single sound. But this silence only lasted for a few seconds. After a moment, they let out earth-shattering roars of anger, and one after another, they charged forward violently. They attempted to disperse the surrounding assassination teams and rushed to Duan Yu and the other side. "Restrain them," a team leader commanded solemnly. "Everyone, don't scatter. Set up a formation. Set up a formation. Separate them urgently." The assassination teams on the side had already started moving long ago. They separated the zombies wave by wave in a well-trained manner and completely trapped them in several shrunken encirclements before exterminating them. Duan Yu grabbed Arbor's small arm and gruffly dragged her to his side. "Why are you messing around like this?" Arbor couldn't resist rolling her eyes. She looked at the handwriting on her small hand and thought, "I wrote it for nothing." She originally wanted to act in secret, so she planned to secretly inform Duan Yu. With Duan Yu's intelligence, he would definitely be able to discern her plan from the 4 words she wrote. But she didn't expect this guy to not only reject her flatly, but he also caught her. How infuriating. Actually, this is a great opportunity. Arbor persuaded earnestly, "Hey, you know it too. If I take advantage of the situation to infiltrate the enemy's camp, perhaps it's not to that extent." Duan Yu glanced at her and interrupted, "Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because Mo Lien went to cultivate. In any case, I say no." Arbor glared at him. "Why are you like him? Tyrannical. What problem could there be? Since the other party set up such an ambush and went to great lengths to capture her, why not go with the flow and follow them to take a look? Nothing ventured, nothing gained." This was clearly a pretty good idea, but Duan Yu, this guy, just wouldn't agree no matter what. In short, be obedient and leave this matter to me." Duan Yu helplessly glanced at her and pointed at the zither-playing corpse puppet number 16, who was hovering in the air and on the verge of death from the demonic emperor's fire. "Do you want to spare his life?" Arbor nodded. Duan Yu immediately withdrew the flames on the zither-playing corpse puppet's body. A thin whip formed from the water spirit coiled around the zither-playing corpse puppet's tattered body and abruptly dragged it in front of them. Duan Yu directly threw that zombie onto the ground. Bang! After a loud noise, a tattered ancient zither fell from the sky and smashed heavily on the ground, breaking into 2 halves on the spot. The zither-stroking corpse puppet was probably still breathing. Arbor took out a sealing ball and stuffed it inside. Then, she threw the sealing ball into an empty storage talisman. Doing this would provide double protection. Of course, it was to prevent this zombie from causing trouble inside the storage talisman and tearing it open on its own. As long as the sealing ball broke, she would immediately sense it and take measures. But judging from this zombie's dying state, she reckoned that he wouldn't be able to do anything. Chapter 46:16. Arbor thought that this zither-playing zombie number 16 was an important fighter of flying paradise, so it would be useful to keep her around. The 4-winged, 3-eyed harpy saw that the situation wasn't right and roared. That sharp voice seemed to want to pierce everyone's eardrums. Following its shriek, the entire army of corpse puppets retreated in unison like marionettes, no longer lingering in the battle. Seeing this, Xian shouted, surround him, don't let them escape. Don't let a single one escape. If these zombies are released, it will definitely be a disaster." Everyone hastened their movements. Spirit weapons flew everywhere, and the power of the 5 spirits collided randomly in the air, exploding into balls of 5-colored spirit light one after another. Seeing that there was nothing else for her to do, Arbor found a clean rock to sit on. Her petite face was still panting with anger. Look at how good her original plan was. As long as she pretended to be caught and followed that group of idiots back, they would immediately find her. Then he would be able to find Mu Qingya, who was hiding in the rat hole, by following the vine to the melon. This woman was too annoying. She had already completely lost her patience. Her desire to make her die a horrible death intensified as time passed. "Jojo, are you hiding something from us?" Duan Yu tugged at her and asked seriously, "Is there something you can't say?" "Nothing. What could there be?" "It's nothing." Arbor shook her head. "No, you are not." Duan Yu glanced at her. "Just now, you suddenly had a whim to pretend to be caught and follow those people back. Is it because you have your own ideas and have no choice but to follow them? I hope you can speak frankly." Duan Yu stared at her. "Speak clearly." "What?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, Little Tai Sui, and the others rushed over. When they heard this, their expressions involuntarily shifted. "You were planning to take the risk yourself, just now? Who told you to do that? Did it have to go to that extent?" Did you have to enter the tiger's den alone? Everyone chimed in at once, giving Sir Jojo a headache. He immediately raised his hands in surrender and repeatedly grumbled, all right, all right. I did have that thought just now. But do on you, he obstructed me. Arbor expressionlessly said, I don't have that thought anymore. Why would you have such an idea? Everyone grabbed her and wanted to get to the bottom of it. Arbor pointed at the four-winged, three-eyed harpy in the air. If you keep chattering around me, it's going to escape. Escape? He-chan sneered. Where can it escape to? This place is already under our control. There's nowhere for them to run. Okay. Arbor waved his little hand. Then you guys stay here. I'll go look elsewhere. After saying this, the little fellow knew that he was in the wrong, so he fled with a guilty conscience. Duan-yu furrowed his brows as he watched her fleeing figure. She has a purpose, but she doesn't say it. He-chan sighed. She always wants to do everything by herself. I really don't know if I should praise her for being independent or vexed. Vexed, of course it's vexed. The little fatty scratched his head and said, should we send someone to follow her? That's fine too. I'll send a team to kill the heavenly fate realm to follow her. Otherwise, this little fellow would keep thinking about entering the tiger's den. Who knew if something else would happen? I've been too busy recently, so I'll give you guys an extra chapter on the 11th. Chapter 46:17. There was no reason why she had to follow them. It was just out of selfishness. This selfishness had been hidden in her heart for a long time. Due to her vengeful nature, due to her very dark, vengeful mentality. Yes, she wanted that woman to die a horrible death. She wanted to dig her out of the rat hole, crush her flesh into pieces, and then put her to death by 1,000 cuts. Arbor pulled out a vine whip and smashed a stone blocking the way in front of her. She ran all the way to the beach, took a deep breath, and exhaled. It was really annoying to bury hatred in one's heart. But this person had enmity with her for 2 lifetimes. If she didn't take revenge, she would be letting down the many sufferings she had suffered in her previous life. She would also be letting down the carefree and unrestrained way she had in this life. Whoever said that one must repay evil with good was an idiot. How could there be so much holy light in this world? How could there be so much kindness and virtue? She just wanted to personally end this feud and put an end to her previous life and this life. It could also be considered as giving herself a clear explanation. Why couldn't she fight back after being fooled for 2 lifetimes? She and Mu Qingyao would settle the score between her previous life and this life. Now, she didn't have much patience to play the cat and mouse game with this woman. She wanted to crush her. Now, this moment. She didn't want to wait for another second. Arbor suddenly turned around and looked coldly at the dozen four-winged, three-eyed harpies standing behind her. The corners of her mouth curled up into a sneer. Sure enough, they still hadn't given up and still wanted to take her away. She didn't wait for them here in vain. The instructions Mu Qingya gave to this group of harpies were probably capture her at all costs and bring Arbor back. It doesn't matter if you're injured or not. It doesn't matter if you're seriously injured. As long as you're still breathing, it's fine. Boom! The door of the cabin was kicked open by someone, and the entire moving wooden plank crashed into the cabin, breaking into several pieces. Gong Song Feng walked into the cabin with a group of people. The silver ghost mask on his face reflected a cold arc. Who told you to set up the ambush? Who told you to send the mutated three-eyed harpy in number 16? Mu Qingya, I need your explanation. If you don't have a reasonable explanation, don't blame me for being heartless and severely punishing you for violating the rules of the organization. Mu Xiaoxue, who was sitting on the edge of Mu Qingya's couch, was startled by their menacing appearance. She hurriedly stood up and called out timidly, Mother! Mu Qingya patted her hand soothingly and slowly tugged at the silk robe draped over her body. Glancing at Gong Song Feng, Mu Qingya smiled faintly. She stood up gracefully and bowed. Oh, Master Gong, why are you so angry? Of course, I'm doing this because I have the edict in my hands. Mu Qingya smiled at Gong Song Feng. He raised his hand and took out a rolled-up piece of silk paper from his sleeve. If Master Gong doesn't believe me, you can take a look at it yourself. Gong Song Fong took the parchment from Mu Qingya and skimmed through it. When he raised his head again, his eyes were extremely sharp as he stared at Mu Qingya. He gritted his teeth and forced out a few words. "You're indeed capable. Hall Master Gong, you flatter me." Mu Qingya smiled and stuffed the parchment back into her sleeve. She looked up at Gong Song Fong. Chapter 46:18. Actually, Hall Master Gong doesn't need to be so angry, Mu Qingya said unhurriedly as she smoothed out the creases on her thin muslin outer robe. "If we can successfully capture her this time, I'll put in a few good words for Hall Master Gong and his group in front of Master." Mu Qingya didn't even need to look at Gong Songfeng's face under his mask to know that Hall Master Gong's expression must be very unsightly right now. Just looking at Vice Hall Master Meng's slightly pale face behind him, Mu Qingya couldn't help but feel a strange excitement flash through her heart. If she captured the little stoic and ordered people to cut open her stomach in front of them to take out the mermaid pearl, wouldn't that be very interesting? She was truly too blessed and too lucky. Why was a 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl in her body? She had already fallen to a place like the lower star domain. So how could she still grow up so smoothly? This shouldn't be the case at all. All of her plans had come to naught. Back then, when Mu Qingya first saw the little stoic in the Mu family of the Divine Province, she knew that nearly half of her overall plan had already been ruined. She wanted to take a gamble for herself and her daughter. It would be great if she could seize this opportunity, but if she couldn't, then it should be fate. The 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl could pull a dying infant back from the brink of death. All these years, it had been imperceptibly influencing that little stoic's constitution. It must be like this. It must be like this. If the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl was in her Shuer's body, sure, who could also become a powerful figure who could look up to heaven and earth without needing to rely on anyone to survive. Opportunity. All she lacked was an opportunity, and this opportunity was about to arrive very soon. Mu Qingya glanced at Fan Meng with a smile. "Vice Hall Master Meng, you don't look well. Are you sick? What do you want to do to her?" Fan Meng seemed to see the little girl's cold and clear eyes staring at her without any signs of life. A wave of icy coldness instantly assaulted his heart. Previously, when the little girl said that they were lying to her, her gaze was so cold that it could almost shatter ice shards. Fan Meng couldn't forget that gaze for a long time, and she inexplicably woke up from her dreams several times. It was as if the little girl's icy claws were clutching her neck. How would the little girl punish the swindler? Fan Meng. The red-robed man turned to look at her and frowned slightly. Recently, Fan Meng and Fan, you were a little absent-minded. They were not in the right state and would be distracted from time to time. Mu Qingya looked at Fan Meng with pity. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, "If Vice Hall Master Meng isn't feeling well, then you should stay in the cabin and rest instead of walking around. As for how I'm going to deal with that stoic face..." Mu Qingya's eyes gradually turned cold. "Isn't it written clearly on Master's silk paper? Die!" Fan Meng's heart trembled as her slender body swayed slightly. Fan Yu hurriedly reached out to support his arm. She turned to look at Mu Qingya and said coldly, "You dream of 1,000 years?" Fan Yu scoffed coldly and said, "Those shrimp soldiers and crab generals you sent out simply can't do anything to the little stoic. So, don't be delusional." Reporting to Hall Master Gong and Hall Master Mu, the three-eyed harpy has returned with his team. Chapter 46:19. The four-winged, three-eyed mutated harpy had returned. Mu Qingya's eyes involuntarily lit up, and she hastily asked, "Did you find anything?" "They captured a young woman, and she's on the deck right now." Mu Qingya hastily walked outside, suppressing a hint of excitement in her eyes. "Did you tie her up with a spirit-binding rope? Did you lock her conscious pool at the first moment? How's her condition now? Is she injured? How are the people around her now? Did no one chase after her?" Mu Qingya quickly walked to the ship's corridor. "Hall Master Mu." A gloomy voice came from behind her. Mu Qingya frowned slightly, and when she turned around, a smile blossomed on her face. "It's great Master Mao Yang. Why aren't you resting in your room? Did the servants fail to serve you well? You could just tell me. Mao Yang's cold gaze swept over her smiling face. This old man heard that you captured that little girl. Mu Qingya's heart tightened, and her eyelids twitched heavily. What? Great Master Mao Yang was also interested in that little stoic. How could that be? She absolutely wouldn't hand this person over to anyone else. Great Master, please forgive me. This young lady is someone that my humble master wants, Mao Yang sneered. Hall Master Mu, in this old man's opinion, you can't swallow the good stuff on this young lady. Mu Qingya's expression didn't change, but perilous waves were surging in her heart. What? This old geezer also came for the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. What did he find out that Arbor had the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl? This is this old man's first time seeing someone truly refine a mystic realm. A feverish glint flashed through the old geezer's eyes. I suspect that this little fellow has refined more than one mystic realm. Her conscience must be connected to the divine realm she carries with her. Ha ha ha! The old geezer laughed wildly. This little girl is mine, for sure. Mu Qingya looked dumbfoundedly at the old geezer who walked to the deck ahead of her. She nearly shattered her teeth from clenching them, and she forced her voice out. Hurry, go. Look, this old geezer's realm was unfathomable. If he wanted to snatch someone, even the 100 people on this ship wouldn't be his match. Of course, if all of the three-eyed harpies were gathered together, they might be able to defeat the old man. It was just that this old man was originally a guest elder of the All-Seer sect, a formation grandmaster, and was highly valued by the master. Mu Qingya didn't want to fall out with the old man unless she had no other choice. She was just an ordinary person. If she were to chase away an array master in such a high-profile manner, the organization would definitely not let her off. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and hurriedly followed the old man to the deck. Fan Meng, Gong Song Feng, and the others hurriedly followed. When they reached the deck, they saw an expressionless young lady standing alone in the middle of the deck. She had a spirit binding rope on her hand, and her eyes were as cold as ice as she looked over. After passing through the crowd, his gaze finally landed on Mu Qingya. An imperceptible coldness appeared on his lips. A meaningful light flashed in his eyes. Ha ha ha! Mao Yang opened his arms to welcome her. It's really you, little girl? Grandmaster Mao Yang, hurry up and seal her consciousness. Do I need you to tell me that? Mao Yang sneered and impatiently glanced at Mu Qingya. As long as she steps on this ship, she won't be able to escape even if she has wings. However, if she's willing to enter her own divine realm, that's not impossible. Chapter 4620. A strange glint flashed through Mao Yang's eyes. At that time, he could follow the clues to find the melon, tear open this divine realm, invade this little imp's divine sense, and completely take it for himself. Arbor coldly stared at the old man for a moment before saying, Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Mao Yang's eyes were instantly filled with haze. Little girl, you still don't understand your current situation, right? Do you know that as long as I say the word, you will immediately be completely controlled? I can send you into a gloomy hell at any time until you are willing to reveal your secrets. The old man smiled sinisterly. Or are you willing to personally offer up your portable divine realm? The little stoic tilted her head and spread her hands, saying coldly, You've locked my conscience, so how can I take out my portable divine realm and give it to you? Mu Qingya stepped forward and said, Master, don't speak too much with her. This little girl is very clever and has extremely bad intentions. If you are slightly careless, you may suffer a hidden loss from her. Mao Yang waved his hand dismissively. As long as she gets on this boat, I have the ability to make it impossible for her to get off. Arbor blinked, and a cold smile filled with evil intentions suddenly appeared on her face. Are you sure? She paused between each word, and her voice was very drawn out, making people feel a bit uncomfortable and flustered. Mu Qingya felt a bit scared from her small gaze, and she immediately felt that her reaction was very laughable. The little girl was currently bound by the spirit-binding rope, and her conscience was locked. What kind of monstrous waves could she cause? She was actually intimidated by her gaze again. This was simply an extraordinary humiliation. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. No, the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl was right in front of her. She had to calm down. She couldn't be too agitated. Her state of mind had to recover to its original state. Only then could she continue to do things calmly, lest she let her impulse burn her head. Grandmaster, you still need to report this matter to Master. After all, this can be considered a major matter. Don't you think so, Master? Of course. Mao Yang saw that she didn't continue to pester him about such trivial matters, so he nodded and said, I will explain clearly to your master that I want this lady to give up her divine realm. Presumably, the master of the Heavenly Fate organization wouldn't be so stingy as to be unwilling to give out even a small favor. The old man's mind was full of wishful thinking. He had forgotten that if he could really take away Arbor's divine territory, that couldn't be considered a small favor. Guards, take him in. Mu Qingya raised her hand and waved. She didn't expect that as soon as she finished speaking, someone would immediately rush over from behind and stand in front of the little stoic. Hall Master Mu, it's better for our underground hall to watch over him. Mu Qingya stared coldly at Fan Meng, who had rushed in front of her. A cold light flashed in her eyes. Right now, she was feeling rather irritable. He had already captured the little stoic, and the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl was about to fall into his hands. However, this group of people kept jumping out to make things difficult for her, which really made her extremely annoyed. Vice Hall Master Meng must be joking. Mu Qingya's smile was gentle as she did her best to soothe her voice. She didn't speak in a very anxious tone. Our soaring heavens captured her, so we naturally have to watch over her. Chapter 46:21. Young Master Songfeng's eyes were cold and sharp, like a pair of sharp arrows, piercing into the depths of Mu Qingya's heart. Even Mu Qingya, who had always been indifferent and calm, couldn't help but tremble slightly. Take him away. Mu Qingya waved her hand, and Hong Chang strode forward with two middle-aged men, wanting to take over Arbor. Fan Meng raised her hand, and a row of wood thorns immediately appeared under Hong Chang and the other's feet. The two middle-aged men hurriedly dodged back and jumped a foot away. Hong Chang looked at Mu Qingya with an unsightly expression. Mu Qingya's expression instantly darkened. Vice Hall Master Meng, what's the meaning of this? Let's see who dares to come forward and snatch him from the underground hall. Fan Meng narrowed her eyes, and the wood's spiritual power in her hand suddenly surged out violently. Mu Qingya clenched her 5 fingers tightly and turned to look at Mao Yang, who was watching coldly. Grandmaster, are you still not going to make a move? I'm a guest of Tianyun, not just a guest of Flying Heaven. The old man smiled leisurely, and a trace of coldness hung in the corner of his mouth. Flying Heaven and Underground Hall wants to fight among themselves. But what does that have to do with me? Why should I interfere? Grandmaster, you must have seen it. If the Underground Hall takes Arbor away, he'll probably be released in less than 4 hours. Mu Qingya said coldly. In this way, Grandmaster's idea of carrying the godly realm will be completely erased, right? Mao Yang realized that this matter involved his interests and immediately frowned. He turned to look at Gong Songfeng, and his attitude was obviously better. It wasn't that he looked down on Mu Qingya. A woman without cultivation, sitting in the position of Hall Master of Flying Heaven Hall at most, was considered quite intelligent and lucky, but it would be difficult for her to advance even half a step. But this young and talented Hall Master Gong was different. Not to mention his cultivation at such a young age, he was that person's right-hand man and was deeply trusted by that person. His strength couldn't be underestimated. Hall Master Gong, in my opinion, it's not appropriate to hand this little girl to any of the Flying Heaven and Underground Halls. It will affect the harmony of our organization. What do you want? Gong Songfeng looked at the old man coldly and clearly saw the greed in his eyes. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. This old man had been seriously injured when he came back last time and was in secluded cultivation, so it was impossible for him to know Jojo's arrival. He did not know who had leaked Xiao Qiao's information to the old man. That person was simply too malicious. Vice Clan leader Meng's words represent my intentions, Gong Song Feng said coldly, rejecting the old man's request. Mu Qingya of the old man's lips. As expected, the old man flared up on the spot. How dare you? Of the hall of flying heaven, of the flying heaven, of this use after all, you of the heaven of this is, of the of this, of so the ofs two of heaven, of the Qing Ti of. He was tricked by Mo Lien in the Tianji secret realm, and finally lost his of the materialized body. Just thinking about it made him want to vomit blood. Now that he thought about it carefully, that young man had tricked him. He had used all his strength from the beginning, and was definitely deliberately suppressing him. In fact, that young man's realm was very unstable. If he hadn't been frightened and reconsidered, perhaps he could have saved his of the of. Chapter 46:22. However, it was clearly too late to say all of this now. When the old man thought of the clone he was forced to abandon, his face turned extremely unsightly. But speaking of which, were all the youngsters nowadays this formidable? The youth he fought with previously wielded a lotus seal from an ancient inheritance, and his strength was terrifyingly tyrannical. If he was allowed to mature in the future, the consequences would be unimaginable. Hall Master Gong is very formidable, Mu Qingya said indifferently. Don't tell me you want to release the crown princess right away. Don't blame me for not warning you in advance. Mu Qingya warned, this Hall Master holds Master's edict. Gong Songfeng snorted and interrupted her, saying impatiently, you don't need to test me again and again. Hall Master Mu, my underground hall is determined to have this person. Take her away. You. Mu Qingya's face contorted slightly when she saw Gong Songfeng's unyielding attitude. None of these people took her seriously. They all looked down on her from start to finish. Even though she was now soaring Heaven's Hall's Hall Master, her position in the organization was second only to a few people and above millions. Mu Qingya clenched her fists tightly and sneered as she stared at Hall Master Gong and the others. Since Hall Master Gong insists on doing this, then I have no choice but to compromise. Mu Qingya raised her voice and tried to put on a brave front. However, I will report this matter to Master. I advise the Hall Masters and Vice Hall Masters not to act recklessly and think that no one can punish you. Mu Qingya turned around after saying this. Let's go. Gong Song Feng and the others watched her leave in a huff before silently turning back to look at the expressionless little stoic. What headache? Gong Song Feng rubbed his temples. Things were already troublesome enough. Why did this little stoic run here instead of obediently staying on her own deserted island? Bring her back first and keep a close watch on her. Gong Song Feng also turned to leave after throwing down this sentence. Fan Ming turned to look at the little stoic and said gently, don't be scared. It'll be fine. The little stoic truly wanted to ask this fool, which eye of hers saw that she was scared. However, she couldn't be bothered to speak to these damn liars and immediately walked back into the passenger cabin. He couldn't help but chuckle. Why do I feel like she's here to stroll in her own backyard? Why was it so comfortable? Rumble, rumble, rumble. Fan Ming's gaze shifted down half an inch and landed on the little stoic. Are you hungry? Nonsense. Only you dead people from all Seer don't know what hunger and exhaustion are. The little stoic retorted righteously. Now that my conscience has been sealed by that old bastard, I can't take anything out. Are you trying to starve me to death? Fan Ming. Jojo really knew how to joke. If a God Realm practitioner really starved to death, the world would laugh their heads off. Hurry up and prepare some food. After Fan Ming instructed the others, she turned back and saw the little stoic sitting upright and still on the wooden couch, her pitch-black eyes staring at her. Fan Ming avoided her gaze as if she had a guilty conscience. She sat down at the table and poured a cup of tea for her. Why did you come here? The little stoic looked at her meaningfully, but didn't say anything. Fan Ming placed the teacup on the table and looked up at her. What I meant was, why did you deliberately come here? Chapter 46:23. With your cultivation, even if you can't defeat those harpies, you can still summon people to help you. Fan Meng's voice paused, and she stealthily glanced at the little stoic in bewilderment. Just now, Great Master Mao Yang said you have a portable divine realm. No matter how bad it is, you can still hide inside if you can't defeat them, right? The little stoic snorted and irritably retorted, I'm not someone who hides her head but shows her tail like you. Of course I have to fight even if I can't defeat them. Why run? Hide? Am I someone who can hide? Fan Meng. As expected, you have to be prepared to choke to death when talking to this little fellow. Cough, cough. Redcoat, who was leaning against the door, couldn't resist coughing twice. He strode in and waved at the little stoic. Stoic, we meet again. The little crown princess looked at him expressionlessly. Her eyes were eerie, like a pair of mercury swaying in a deep pool, making it impossible to discern her true emotions. Stoic, why exactly did you come? Redcoat chuckled as he dragged a stool to sit in front of the couch. He got straight to the point and asked, tell us your objective and see if we can agree to it. Arbor looked at him for a while and evaded the topic, saying aloofly, I want to see that rotten old man. Who? Redcoat blinked curiously and looked at her regretfully. What's there to see about that rotten old man? I have something to discuss with him. Can we be present? Redcoat asked jokingly. Arbor was expressionless as she replied coldly. Up to you. From her unconcerned appearance, it looked like she really didn't care whether they were present or not. Ah, if you say so, then you'll be obedient. Redcoat nodded with a grin. Looking at the little girl's appearance, he really wanted to raise his hand and smooth her hair. We're staying here for your own good. You have to know that that old man wanted to refine you since just now. If we weren't here to protect you, he would definitely eat you. Arbor chuckled. His laughter was rather strange, but his expression remained as still as a mountain. It was a little cute. With a fake smile, the corners of Red Robe's mouth twitched. He waved his sleeves, turned around, and walked to the door. He called out, Go and ask the master to come over. Jojo, you. Hearing Fan Meng's cry, Hong Yi turned around and saw the little girl sitting up straight. She took out a golden talisman from her sleeve. Saint Grade golden talisman? Hong Yi cried out in surprise. What are you trying to do? Saint Grade gold talisman, God's summoning talisman. She had drawn over 100 God-inviting talismans, but this was the only Saint Grade golden talisman she had drawn. With the grade of this talisman, she didn't know what kind of immortal species it could summon. Logically speaking, the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal should summon an expert of Immortal Venerable level and above from the Holy Region. He didn't know if they would be like rotten peach blossoms, staying here and not want to go back. Arbor's fingers shook, and a talisman force quickly flowed out. Lu, Yi, and Lan Ning, who had just arrived at the door and had yet to speak, couldn't help but be startled. The golden talisman that was floating in the air suddenly shattered in the void. Light and shadow shot out in all directions. In an instant, the entire room was enveloped in rays of light. Fan Meng reflexively reached out to grab the little stoic's arm. However, the little stoic didn't even move half an inch from the couch. She didn't look like she wanted to escape at all. Fan Meng was taken aback and reflexively glanced at Arbor. Chapter 46:24. Slap. The little fellow rudely slapped his hand away. Then, he looked around with an expressionless face. After looking for a long time and waiting for a while, he couldn't help but frown. The deity-inviting talisman was indeed as deceptive as always. Forget it. She was probably a laggard like a rotten peach blossom. She was a bit slower, so she should be on her way now. Vice Hall Master, the great master is here. Fan Meng returned to her senses and said, Invite him in. Mao Yang strode in and locked his eyes on Arbor. I heard you wanted to see me? The little girl is quite gutsy. What, you're not scared now? Don't think that I don't dare to do anything to you just because Hall Master Gong and the others are protecting you. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Arbor irritably interrupted the old man's monologue. I called you here because I have something for you to do. I'll give this to you once you're done. As she spoke, The little girl dug around in her sleeve and took out a pitch-black heart of misfortune. She casually tossed in her hand. "How is it, everyone?" Exclamation point. At this moment, Great Master Mao Yang felt like 1,000 curses were galloping through his heart. If there were 2 words to describe his current feelings, it would definitely be fuck. What was going on? This girl's head couldn't have been squashed by a door, right? Was there such an oddball existence like her? What kind of toy did she think she had randomly pulled out? It wasn't some small glass ball for decoration. That was a genuine, refined, mystic realm. "Little girl, are you serious?" The old man's eyes shone brightly. If he could pounce over and snatch it, he would have already disregarded his status. However, he was apprehensive about Fan Meng and the others, so he forcibly restrained himself. Now that he heard the little stoic's tempting condition, how could he not agree? "What is it?" "It's practically a piece of cake for you." Arbor tossed the heart of misfortune in her hand and stared at the old man with cold eyes. She said faintly, "Go deal with all the trash by mooching Ya's side. Remove all her limbs and bring her to me. Then this is yours." She raised her hand and tossed the heart of misfortune up and down as if it was a toy. The old man felt his teeth ache as he stared fiercely at the heart of misfortune in her hand. "Deal." The old man forced these 2 words out of his gritted teeth. He agreed almost immediately. Arbor nodded and looked at the old man with a faint smile. "Go and do it. If you do it well, you'll naturally receive great benefits. I never lie. If you don't believe me, you can ask them." "Damn liar." Arbor pointed at Fan Meng and the others beside him. Fan Meng, Hong Yi, Lu Yi, and Lan Ning were speechless. The old man sneered, "I don't think you would dare to deceive this old man." After saying that, he turned around and left as fast as lightning. Arbor sneered in his heart. This Hall Master Mu didn't believe in fate, but she insisted on letting this person know. If it's fated, it will be there. If it's not fated, don't force it. Bang, 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 bang. After a few loud sounds, something dropped down from above her head, smashing towards the little stoic's body with a burst of flying ash. Why were all the people from the holy region so deceptive? Chapter 46:25. She watched as this person fell down from the top of the cabin and rolled straight toward her. The little stoic hastily and silently moved aside, allowing this elderly person to mercilessly crash onto the wooden couch with a bang. After the dull thud, everyone was speechless. This situation was inexplicably a bit funny. What was going on? Arbor jumped off the couch with a kick of his legs and solemnly looked at the person who couldn't get up after rolling on the couch for a long time. From her angle, she felt that the elderly person was very short and small. She wore a new bright red robe with a long ponytail trailing behind her head. Just looking at her back and figure, Arbor instantly felt a bit of disdain. What was going on? The elderly senior who was summoned by a saint-grade deity inviting talisman didn't even have a 10,000th of the elegance and nobility of Rotten Peach Blossom. In any case, Rotten Peach Blossom's consummate with spirit skill was world-shocking. Why did this person in front of her look so unreliable? The figure on the couch suddenly moved, and a small hand trembled as it raised up. They seemed to have heard the elderly senior make a shattering sound and subconsciously took a few steps forward, wanting to clearly hear what she was saying. "Tian, Tian, Tian, Tian Dao." A weak voice came from the couch, sounding like she was gnashing her teeth. "Tian Dao, you old swindler, don't let me see you again." This elderly senior jumped up from the couch with a poof, and her eyes, as cold as the moon in starlight, abruptly swept a glance over everyone in the room. When her gaze landed on Arbor, her eyes suddenly brightened as if they were emitting millions of starlight, twinkling brightly. "Little treasure." The elderly senior pounced forward, but because she was especially short, she jumped into Arbor's arms with a thud. Sir Jojo was stupefied and subconsciously reached out to catch this fellow, blinking his eyes. What kind of great Buddha did this Sir summon? She's so short. Isn't she just a little brat? Wait, what did she call me just now? Child, why are you so silly? Don't you recognize your Aunt Master? The child looked at her with a grin and reached out a small hand to stroke her head in all seriousness. Everyone was speechless. They couldn't help but think about this strange scene. A brat around 5 to 6 years old was caressing the little stoic's head, revealing a loving gaze, and even calling her child. This scene was too beautiful. Everyone couldn't bear to look at it directly. The little stoic's eyes instantly widened, revealing an incredulous expression. This can't be real, right? Master and Uncle Master are restricted by the heavenly Tao. Didn't they say that they can't come over? Could it be that he had summoned an old senior who was keen on prying into people's dreams and reading their minds? It was impossible for a freak from the sacred region to not have some skills. Looking at her youthful face and white hair, she shouldn't be too old. No wonder his temperament was so jumpy that he actually came to pretend to be her martial uncle. Arbor carried this old senior with both hands as if he was carrying a hot potato. He didn't know whether to throw him away or not. After a while, the little stoic expressionlessly glanced at her and used one hand to pick up this fellow, while her other hand vigorously rubbed that child's head. "Brat, you still want to trick me? Stop acting. I won't fall for your trick." The little stoic muttered and walked forward a few steps with the child. Chin Nitian, who was being carried around all the way, instantly looked a bit embarrassed. What goes around comes around. Chapter 46-26. Thinking back to the past, it was only her who dragged the little stoic here and there. But now, it was the other way round. "Put me down." Chin Nitian grumpily slapped the back of the little stoic's hand. Sir Jojo pursed her lips and let go, throwing Defying the Heavens onto the couch. "Watch." Little Defying the Heavens stood up and patted the robe on his body. This fraudulent heavenly law dragged her along and refused to let her go. In the end, it couldn't defy that sacred-grade deity inviting talisman and was forced to allow her to pass through the heavenly law's barrier and enter the Wanchuan region. The problem was at the very last moment, heavenly law still ruthlessly tricked her. After she passed through space, her body shrunk to the size of a 5 or 6-year-old child. Thankfully, the robes she was wearing were the origin-returning treasure clothes made by a weapon refiner and could change according to her height. Otherwise, wouldn't she be running around naked right now? It ruined her image too much. When Defying the Heavens thought of that fraudulent heavenly law, his face darkened. "Watch." Chin Nitian turned back and roared at the little stoic. Before the little stoic could react, her small figure had already vanished from everyone's sight. The power of space. These 4 words abruptly popped out in Green E, Lan-Ing, and the others' minds. In an instant, a loud bang was heard. Everyone looked over in astonishment and saw the entire window beside them was kicked to smithereens. A small figure hopped in and swept a disdainful gaze around. Finally, it landed on the little stoic's face. Little Against the Heavens took a few steps forward and ran in front of her. He raised his head and asked solemnly, "Did you see clearly?" "I didn't see clearly. Aunt Master is telling you to look again." After saying that, a cluster of light suddenly rose from his hand and smashed into the 2 unlucky fellows who darted in after hearing the news. Arbor stared blankly as those 2 spirit realm cultivators were directly sent flying out of the passenger cabin by Aunt Master's light element attack. Splash. 2 splashes sounded in succession. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. In front of this little one, those 2 people actually didn't have the strength to retaliate and were sent flying in a single exchange. Aunt Master. This time, the little stoic truly recognized him. Just by looking at the skillful way he smashed people, his mastery of the power of space, and his tendency to send people to their deaths without any explanation, this person was undoubtedly her heaven-defying martial uncle. "Naughty brat." Little Ni Tion's little face tightened as he angrily scolded. She lowered her head to look at her tiny hands and feet, then looked up at Xiao Mu. Small eyes ordered Xiao Mu, "Carry me, your Aunt Master." The corners of Arbor's mouth twitched. He squatted down obediently and picked up his little Uncle Master. He held him in his hands as if he was holding a big Buddha with a pious expression. "Martial Uncle, how did you get here?" Just now, Aunt Master smashed down from above. Could it be that he was kicked down by the heavenly Tao? What kind of mocking expression is that? Little Defiant flew into a rage. He stretched out his little hand and slapped Arbor's forehead twice. Does your martial uncle look like someone who would be tricked? You do. The little stoic answered very honestly in her heart. Your master and I have been worried day and night about you, naughty brat, in vain. We didn't know how you were doing. We didn't expect that when we met again, you wouldn't even recognize your Aunt Master. Tell me, should you? Shouldn't. Little Defiant choked and reprimanded in a huff. What kind of expression is that? Chapter 46:27. Uncle Master, I don't have any expression, the little stoic replied innocently. Chin Nitian. That's right, it's wrong to have no expression. Chin Nitian angrily reached out and rubbed the little stoic's face. Didn't I tell you before? Why are you born a stoic and old lady? You have to smile. Arbor tugged at his lips and suddenly hugged his Uncle Master, kissing the top of her disheveled hair. Uncle Master, it's really great to see you. Little Nitian flailed her arms in exasperation. Hurry and let me down, Uncle Master. How is this appropriate? Arbor hugged her with a chuckle. Just as they reached the door, they heard a sinister voice. Little miss, I've already done as you instructed. Then now shouldn't it be up to you to fulfill your promise? The old man's snort of laughter abruptly broke the tranquility here. Everyone looked up in unison at Great Master Mao Yang, who walked in from the door. This great master looked to be in a good mood, as his entire person exuded a hint of excitement amidst the sinister aura. It looked like he had already completed his task. Oh, where's the person I wanted? The old man chuckled and shrugged. She already escaped on a small boat less than an hour ago. It's not that I didn't complete my mission, but that Hall Master Mu is too formidable. Little miss, the moment you appeared, she already guessed that you were here to make trouble for her. Arbor coldly swept a glance at Mao Yang. She escaped. You didn't complete your mission, yet you dare to claim credit in front of me? You're truly laughable, Great Master. The old man's eyes were enraged, revealing a vortex of greed. Do you think you still have a choice now? Mao Yang sneered. Your only choice now is to hand over that godly realm black pearl and assist me in forming a contract with it. Also, you should have other portable godly realms on you that can merge with your body, right? Little treasure, who is this old geezer? Little Nitian suddenly asked, his eyes coldly glaring at the boastful old thing in front of him. Did he not think that he was being ridiculous? He actually dared to threaten a student in front of Chin Nitian. It seemed like this old man didn't know where he stood. The little stoic's eyes brightened, and she obediently replied, This elderly senior is a formation great master. It was this senior who set up a formation to shield the ship from divine sense. As soon as I walked in, my divine sense was locked. I can't open my inner world, and I can't take out any food. I'm about to starve to death. When Chin Nitian heard the little stoic's words, his brows furrowed half an inch. Originally, I used the heart of misfortune to make a deal with him so that he could bring my enemy, Mu Qingya, here. I didn't expect that not only did this old senior fail to complete his mission, he even came to me to ask for a reward. Let me ask you, how can there be such a logic in this world? Grandmaster Mao Yang's expression was extremely ugly. He stared coldly at Arbor and said, Little girl, you also know that your consciousness is sealed? Since that's the case, why don't you listen obediently? You even want to bam. Suddenly, a ray of light exploded in front of Mao Yang like a halo. Even with Mao Yang's speed, he couldn't block Chin Nitian's attack from the sky. Mao Yang retreated 17 to 18 steps. Chapter 46:28. His pair of gloomy old eyes instantly widened, and his body also completely straightened. Just now, that terrifying premonition of impending danger made his heart beat faster uncontrollably, and he subconsciously retreated a few steps to barely block the other party's fierce attack. The instant the light element exploded, a berserk factor filled this space, making one's heart tremble involuntarily. The old man felt that his hand holding his long sword was trembling slightly due to the impact of that power. But how could the 5 to 6 year old little girl next to the little girl, such a tiny little imp, accumulate such a terrifying, explosive power in her body? She was a freaking little monster, right? Wait, that little monster narrowed her eyes and was about to attack him again. Master Mao Yang hastily stopped her and said loudly, "A little girl, stop. This old man didn't come here to fool the little stoic. I really caught her." Master Mao Yang said sternly, "Although Mu Qingya and her daughter escaped, she still has a daughter that I sent people to bring over. Take a look first. Isn't it up to you to decide whether it's useful or not?" Arbor raised her brows slightly when she heard this, and her gaze shifted to the entrance. She saw 2 robust men dragging a woman who was on the verge of death through the entrance. The 2 robust men threw her in front of Arbor without the slightest bit of pity for the fairer sex before turning to leave. Mao Yang's eyes flickered as he looked at Arbor. "How is it? Take a look. This is Hall Master Mu's biological daughter that you want. If you detain this person..." Arbor glanced at Mu Rochuan in astonishment. Why did Mu Rochuan look so miserable after not seeing her for a while? Not to mention the scar on her face, there didn't seem to be a single piece of good flesh on her body. Her complexion was very pale, and she looked at her with lifeless eyes. She actually didn't know how to scold her anymore. The 2 people's gazes met, and their eyes met. Mu Roxian actually smiled weakly at her. Arbor instantly felt that the sun might rise from the west. Mu Rochuan actually smiled at her? Didn't she hate her the most? She hated her for stealing her identity as the eldest daughter of the Mu family. She hated her appearance. She hated her for being able to overshadow her glory despite being from a lower star field. She hated her talent, intelligence, and all the glory that she valued were all taken away. "Martial uncle, this person doesn't speak the truth and is especially annoying." Mu Roxian was clearly an abandoned pawn by Mu Qingya. "How dare this old man lie in front of me? You just have to argue with me." The little stoic shouted at Little Defiant in a huff. Qin Nitian didn't say anything and slapped him across the face. After a pa sound, the old man's cheeks had 5 distinct, small handprints on them. He didn't feel much pain, but the humiliation was enough to make his lungs explode. He almost fainted from anger. The little stoic's eyes flickered, and her gaze landed meaningfully on the old man. "I knew it. Mu Qingya's special ability is long-range surveillance." She saw that the old man accepted her deal and came to kill her. But does she really think she can escape from the Forgotten River? The show had just started, and it was only the prelude. The little stoic's chilly gaze landed on the old man, and she suddenly shouted, "Martial uncle, this old man has been bullying me. He used his mental power to suppress me, and even wanted to steal my portable divine realm." Chapter 46-29. Preposterous. Everyone heard the 5 to 6-year-old girl angrily rebuke in a soft voice. Their mouths twitched involuntarily. There was no other reason. This child was too soft and cute. Even if she used all her strength and shouted angrily, it sounded like she was acting coquettishly. That old man, Mao Yang, was almost hit by Lil Defiant's light wheel earlier. After retreating a dozen steps, his heart was still thumping with fear. At this moment, he suddenly heard little Ni Tion's roar. Looking down, his breath was stuck in his throat, and he almost couldn't get it out. Was this real? Just now, Defiant attacked too quickly, so the old man didn't see clearly who it was that threw the light wheel at him. Now that he took a closer look, he was almost angered to death. The little girl was no more than 5 to 6 years old. She looked soft and round and harmless. Such a squishy little ball scared the old man half to death just now. He thought it was some venerable sage who had descended, but when he came back to his senses, it was actually a little girl. He was actually scared by this little girl just now. If his group of old brothers were to find out about such a shameful thing, they would probably laugh their heads off. Mao Yang's face darkened. He stared coldly at Lil Defiant and said sternly, "Where did this little girl come from?" "Your parents' slap." The old man was dumbfounded. There was an additional mark on his cheek that matched the original slap mark. It was small, and the 5 fingers were very bright. "Who allowed you to speak?" Lil Defiant's little face darkened, and his gaze was sharp as he looked directly at the old man. You secretly set up a few mediocre illusory array formations. Who do you think you can do to us? Mao Yang was slightly shocked, and his expression turned ugly. This little girl actually saw through his illusory array formation. Before he came, he set up a small illusory array formation outside the cabin door and in the corridor to prevent the little stoic from escaping with the heart of misfortune. Who would have thought that the array formation he set up would be seen through by this little girl in front of him? What exactly was this little girl's background? Could it be that she was a young miss from some impressive family in the Holy Region? Could it be that she was like him and couldn't get used to the Holy Region and secretly came to the river of forgetfulness, Pa? The old man's face couldn't help but twitch as he received another slap on his cheek. He was so angry that his old eyes suddenly turned red. A warrior would rather be killed than humiliated. He was slapped 3 times by this little child, and he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. I think you're courting death, the old man suddenly waved his hand. A big guy with a tiger's head and a dragon's tail suddenly roared and pounced on the ground, directly smashing the furniture and utensils in front of it. Fan Meng frowned and said coldly, Grandmaster Mao Yang, what are you doing? Do you have to use the tiger dragon beast to scare people? This tiger-headed, dragon-tailed beast occupied the entire cabin as soon as it came out. It cornered everyone in a corner and stared at them coldly. Qin Nitian was so angry that he stomped his feet. His eyes were cold as he looked up at the old man and sneered, Of all things, you want to compete in beasts with me? Who is this old man trying to scare? Competing with her in beasts? Lil Defiant waved her hand, and everyone's gaze involuntarily followed her little hand. He felt as if his heart was being pressed down by a heavy boulder, and even his breathing became difficult. Chapter 4630. Boom! Fan Meng and the others couldn't help but be flabbergasted. With their eyesight, they naturally saw that the little girl had summoned a 4-winged thunder dragon from the alternate space. Like a sudden clap of thunder, he released a terrifying light of thunder spirit. Immediately after, the tiger dragon was heavily sent flying by an irresistible power of lightning. Its enormous body fell out of the cabin and heavily smashed onto the deck outside. Some people on the deck were scared half to death, and they screamed as they jumped up and fled in unison. It was only after they were a distance away that those people let out sighs of relief and stealthily looked over. The tiger dragon beast was lying there pitifully. Even the reinforced deck of the ship had caved in a few inches due to its huge body. The tiger dragon's fur on its back had been touched by the power of lightning, and a large area of its fur had turned black and curled up. It simply looked incomparably wretched. Fan Meng and the others hastily ran out of the dilapidated cabin. At this time, the other members of the 7 Flowers all rushed over after hearing the commotion. Arbor's gaze swept over them. When he saw that young Master Song Feng wasn't present, suspicion arose in his heart. Could it be that Gong Song Feng had something to do and had already left the ship? What's going on? A cyan figure flashed, and he ran to Fan Meng and Hong Yi's side. He whispered, How did the little stoic cause such a big commotion? Aren't you guys watching her? Redcoat put on a fake smile and said, Look, how are we supposed to watch? It's not like this is the first time you've heard of the little stoic's earth-shattering personality. That's true. Qing Xing pursed his lips, and his gaze landed on the wretched tiger dragon. He cried out in alarm, Isn't this Grandmaster Mao Yang's 5th-level spiritual beast? Why is it so wretched now? While they were talking, Mao Yang stumbled out of the cabin with a pale face. When he saw the tiger dragon beast lying on the ground, on the verge of death, he hurriedly put it into his spirit beast space to recuperate. What a joke. If the tiger dragon was killed by someone, although it wouldn't affect its master's life, it would absolutely reduce his strength by half. Furthermore, it would be very difficult for him to form a contract with other spirit beasts in the future. After all, the laws of heaven and earth were very fair to everyone. Being able to contract with only one beast in one's lifetime wasn't a joke. Therefore, even though Mao Yang was unwilling, he still carefully recalled his tiger dragon beast back into his body. Have a taste of my great void dream formation. Mao Yang's eyes turned red, and the anger in his heart couldn't help but rise. With a wave of his hand, a strong gust of wind swept across the crowd. Everyone was brought into Mao Yang's great void dream formation. In the blink of an eye, the little stoic felt her body plummet straight down. She could hear the sound of the wind and a few people calling her name. Jojo, Jojo, it was so annoying to listen to. What could possibly happen to Jojo? Of course, it was impossible for such a formation to hurt Master Jojo. However, this person who set up formations at the drop of the hat was so annoying. He would lock her conscious for a while, and then throw her into some great dream-breaking formation. As the name implied, this should be a trapping formation, right? Those people on the deck had probably all been brought into this large formation. Little treasure. Just as the little stoic was getting impatient from the plummeting, a ripple-like undulating scar appeared in the space in front of her. Chapter 46:31. A small hand reached out from inside and grabbed her arm tightly. Uncle Master. The little stoic seemed to pass through a thin layer of space and abruptly arrived in front of little Nitian. Are you all right, little treasure? Little Nitian raised his small hand and caressed Arbor's face, pinching it in passing. Don't be scared, Uncle Master is here. What can happen to me? The little stoic expressionlessly replied. Qi Nitian's heart felt stifled. What was going on? She actually felt a sense of melancholy, as if her child had grown up and no longer needed her parents. Then can you break this illusory illusion formation? Arbor shook his head in puzzlement. I don't know anything about formations. Nitian, since you can't break the formation, why do you look so calm and collected? Look at this little guy. He didn't know whose bad habits he had inherited. He couldn't tell what the little guy was thinking from his expression. Arbor blinked. Isn't Uncle Master here? Nitian, it seemed this little guy had hope. Let's go out first. Although this lousy formation didn't have much deterrence, it wouldn't be good for their bodies if they were trapped here for a long time. Qi Nitian waved his small hand, and the space in front of them twisted. The entire illusory illusion space was like a small toy in her small, jade-white hand and was instantly crushed. Little Nitian jumped into the stoic Qiao's arms and pointed at a circular spatial door that appeared in front of them. Let's go. Qiao Mu carried her small body and stepped through the space door with a step. Narrowing his eyes, he saw that the two of them had returned to the original deck. On the ground, there was a shallow pit created by the tiger dragon beast. The air in the surrounding area was fluctuating. Suddenly, one figure after another was released from the illusionary dream formation and fell down one after another. Fan Meng and the others reacted quickly. As soon as they realized they had left the formation, they steadied themselves and floated to the ground. It was the other disciples of the Heavenly Fates sect who suffered. Some of them rolled out of the array, and before they could react, they screamed and fell into the sea. The deck started bustling with activity. Some people didn't know what was going on at all and looked around in confusion. Qi Nitian's face darkened as he shouted, "Still not showing yourself?" With a gentle flick of her finger, a crack appeared in the space in front of her. A black figure was sucked out from inside. With a wail, it fell heavily to the ground. "Old man, you want to play array with me?" Little and I Tion smirked. "Who do you think your lousy formation can trap?" The old man couldn't stop trembling. He was drenched from head to toe, as if he had been fished out of a river. Arbor suddenly realized that she seemed to be able to use her divine sense. It looked like the villainous old man's consciousness had suffered a heavy blow. At this moment, he could no longer maintain the great spirit sealing array that he had previously set up. This old man really brought this upon himself. He was sealing someone else's divine sense, but in the end, his own divine sense just had to suffer a destructive injury. Interesting. The little stoic raised her eyebrows cheerfully. The old ghost raised his head with a ghastly pale face. Before he could finish his sentence, "How did you?" He spat out a mouthful of blood. It looked like he had been holding it in for a long time and couldn't bear it anymore. so he could only spit it out in front of everyone. TSK, TSK. This appearance of wanting to save face at all costs was really delightful to look at. Chapter 4632. 50384 Area of Effect Damage. You want to ask me how I can break your bullshit fall stream formation? Against the sky, sized up the old man in amusement. He motioned for the little stoic to put him down on the ground. Everyone saw a 5 or 6-year-old soft little girl running in front of the old man with small, quick steps. She lifted her small chin and said coldly, "I'm your ancestor who set up the formation." Everyone, Master Mao Yang had a gloomy expression. He gnashed his teeth and sneered, little brat. You think you've won for sure? You might as well raise your head and take a look." Master Mao Yang let out a shrill howl, his eyes dark. "Today all of you will die here." Xiao Mu looked up and gazed impassively at the large, densely packed group of harpies approaching from afar. The sky was blocked by the harpies' pitch-black wings. There was a dense mass of black above their heads, and from time to time, several black wings would shed their feathers and float down from above. The little stoic's face darkened, and she subconsciously moved closer to her Antmaster. There were probably tens of thousands of harpies in the sky, and each one looked stronger than the previous harpies. Furthermore, their bodies emitted a faint blue glow. Master Mao Yang sneered. "How is it, little brat? Do you think that Hall Master Mu doesn't have a backup plan?" The old man stared at Arbor and smiled smugly. "Instead of cooperating with a little brat like you who goes back on her word, why don't I continue cooperating with Hall Master Mu? After all, this old man is still someone blessed by the heavens. The organization forbids private fights and the killing of companions. Little miss, I'm a good person, so how can I really listen to your orders and go deal with Hall Master Mu? Do you feel especially disappointed and dejected?" The old man wanted to discern some clues from the stoic's calm face. In the end, he couldn't discern anything. "As expected, you're a cunning old man." Xiao Mu nodded at this great Master Mao Yang. "This Hall Master Mu that you speak of is indeed extraordinarily intelligent. However, this is as far as he goes." "What do you mean?" The old man frowned. He had a bad feeling about this. Arbor gave him a long look and said expressionlessly, "If you're in the mood to worry about others, why don't you worry about yourself? What is there for me to worry about? Do you think you can escape unscathed under the siege of these mutated harpies that have been poisoned by over 10,000 of them? Ah, look up." The little stoic suddenly pointed at the sky. The old man's eyelids twitched. He looked up and saw that the 5 or 6-year-old girl had already leaped into the air. One person stood in front of thousands of harpies. The old man's heart trembled, and he couldn't help but shout angrily, "Wishful thinking! Who do you think you are?" He wanted to fight against tens of thousands of harpies by himself. Don't blame this old man for not reminding you. Once the flesh and blood of these harpy men fall to the ground, they will definitely be poisoned and die without a proper burial ground. These were all harpies that had mutated after being dipped in poison. No one could stop them. They were originally prepared to attack Yen City, but now they were used here. First the old man glared, only to see the little girl turn her head and glance coldly at him. She then brandished a heaven-pointing sword. All of a sudden, a blinding light erupted simultaneously. Just like that, she brandished it directly at the harpy army opposite her. Chapter 4633. Who do you think you are? Vainly thinking that you can withstand the attack of tens of thousands of poison-mutated harpies by yourself? Mao Yang didn't expect that the other party would display extraordinary strength right after he taunted her. Mao Yang's old face was completely contorted, and he widened his dog eyes in disbelief at the situation in the sky. That little girl swung her sword. It was merely a single strike. Under the dazzling radiance, the sword shadows transformed into tens of thousands of mimicry humans and swept toward the harpies in front of them. An unstoppable force rushed into the group of eagle-bodied cultivators. Mao Yang and the others only saw a dazzling radiance in front of them. A massive light barrier descended from the sky and enveloped the entire harpies inside. A deafening sound exploded in the midst of the eagle-body crowd like a thunderclap. They clearly saw that the group of fleeing harpies inside the light barrier were instantly ground into fine powder the moment they came into contact with the tens of thousands of rays of light, and the powder drifted down. Everyone was stunned. The little stoic blinked her eyes and dazedly looked up at her Uncle Master for a long time, unable to utter a single word. That's right, in my impression, my Uncle Master is indeed such an unscrupulous and dashing person, starting a fight at the slightest disagreement. This simply fits the image of the Uncle Master deep in my memory. That's right, these harpies were all insta-killed by my Uncle Master in a single move. Heh, I'm not blind. My eyesight is failing me? Redcoat finally found his voice after a while, and asked meekly, "Did the little girl annihilate tens of thousands of harpies in a single move just now?" "Your eyesight isn't failing me." Fan Ming shook her head and said, "That is indeed the truth. This kind of terrifying power already didn't belong to the category of human power, right? How could there be such an expert in this world? Peak stage divine venerable realm? Could it be the holy venerable realm? I don't know." Fan Ming shook her head again and looked in the little stoic's direction. In the end, she saw that the little fellow was also in a daze, looking like she was at a loss for words. After this ultimate strike, several hundred transparent chains appeared in the air and shot toward little device limbs, tightly binding them. "Qin Nitian, are you a fraud? I told you not to beat them to death. Don't kill them." A trembling voice that was close to hysteria directly entered Defy the Heavens' mind through the soul voice. Strangely, Lady Chow Chow was actually able to hear the voice. The little fellow could not help but frown. She was already very familiar with this voice. It was the Heavenly Tao. The Heavenly Tao had come to capture Lord Jojo's martial uncle again. Couldn't it just stop for a bit? Jojo Sama had only reunited with his martial uncle for a few seconds. Why was he rushing over to catch people? "Heavenly Tao, I'm warning you. Let me go. Aren't you annoying? If I hadn't killed him earlier, we would be the ones dead now." Little Defying the Heavens swung the transparent chain around his wrist and sent a soul message to the Heavenly Tao. He wanted to let this old man know how angry he was right now. How can you do that? How can you insta-kill him? How could you use a top-notch killing move to torture these small shrimps? You're cheating. Hurry and scram back. Don't cause trouble here. Heavenly Tao's internal OS was probably on the verge of collapse right now. Chapter 4634. When did I cheat? Get your facts straight. I didn't arbitrarily tear open space to come here. I was summoned here. Do you understand summoning? I didn't break the rules. I'm not going back. Child, according to this summoning talisman of yours, how long can Ant Master stay here? Forever, the little stoic said expressionlessly. Pooh scram. A lean little old man with white hair, white beard, and white eyebrows popped out of the void, and he stomped on the clouds. "You are the Heavenly Tao." This image did not match the grand and lofty Heavenly Tao that she had in mind at all. "What's with your brat's expression?" Heavenly Law hopped around. "It's an expression of disdain." Nitian rolled his eyes. "Look at your rotten old man's image. Who would take a liking to you? What did you say?" The little old man paced back and forth in the air, huffing and puffing as he roared. "What do you know? I am Heavenly Law, and Heavenly Law is formless. Any form can be called Heavenly Law. I can turn into a drop of water, a gust of wind, a blade of grass, a cloud in the air. Now that I've turned into a human, in order to match this old man's age, I aged a little. Who am I hindering?" "Shut up." Little Ant Master and Martial Nephew roared at the old man at the same time. "You talk too much. Too long-winded." The little stoic and Qin Nitian reprimanded one after another, and then they looked at each other from a distance. The little old man was infuriated, and he glared at the two of them and roared. So what if this old man talks a little too much? Everyone, they were dreaming, right? Just now, they saw with their own eyes someone annihilate all the harpies with a single strike. Now, they saw a little old man who resembled Heavenly Law, hopping and flipping in the clouds, and even chattering and cursing at someone. It was a fantasy. There must be something wrong with their eyesight. Heavenly Law, let me ask you, why didn't you strike me last time when I was 5 spirits reincarnation? This question had been suppressed in the little stoic's heart for a very, very long time. She had to ask clearly, why didn't this guy strike her? And since you didn't do it the last time, does that mean you won't do it in the future? The little stoic asked several questions expressionlessly. The questions she asked made everyone present extremely speechless. I'm telling you, don't screw me over. Last time, I drew so many talismans, set up so many talisman arrays, and put on hundreds of layers of defensive barriers. You won't strike me. If you find another chance to strike me again, I will definitely not let you off. Fan Ming glanced at the little stoic and muttered in her heart. I saw Heavenly Law's lips twitch just now. He's seriously too anthropomorphic. Look at your good disciple. Heavens will roar it against the sky angrily. My balls hurt when I see you. Hurry up and scram. Scram, scram, scram. Sheen Nitian, you can only stay here for 24 hours. Once the 24 hours are up, you'd better return to your position and get the hell out of here. Don't mess around here. Also, do not meddle in the affairs of this place. Don't randomly use skills. In short, once the 24 hours are up, you'd better get the hell out of here. More than 2 hours have already passed, so you're on your own now. Wait, come back here. I already said that I was summoned here, so it's in accordance with Heavenly Law's rules. Rules my ass. Your existence is the greatest violation of rules. Get the hell out of here. Heavenly Law's aura disappeared into the clouds with a huff. Chapter 46:35. Arbor blinked strangely and looked at little Antmaster, who floated to the ground and walked up to her. Isn't the old man a bit strange? He keeps telling Antmaster scram, but he's the first one to scram and scram. Against the heavens, Fan Ming and the others. Against the heavens couldn't resist chuckling. He originally wanted to pounce forward and hug his little Antmaster, but he discovered that his arms and legs were short, so he could only pounce onto the little fellow's legs. Against the heavens was quite gloomy. With a raise of his hand, a gigantic four-winged thunder dragon landed in front of the little stoic with a puff. Against the heavens abruptly discovered that his Xiao Bao's eyes had clearly brightened. This oddball stoic really wasn't any different from usual. Little Against the heavens' eyes curved into crescents with a grin, and he glanced amiably at Arbor and said, Xiao Bao, it wasn't easy for Antmaster to come here. It's time to leave. Even if she didn't leave, Heavenly Law wouldn't let her off. Let's not care about this mess. Let's go chat with Antmaster. Arbor nodded her small head. Against the heavens noticed that all the pretty boys around them were looking at her strangely. Little Against the heavens climbed onto Arbor and poked the little stoic's cheek, asking quietly, They're your friends? No. Arbor shook her small head and turned to glance at Fan Ming and the others with a complicated gaze. After thinking about it, she still said, Are you guys going to stop me? On the side, Lu E hastily shook her head and said, Of course we won't stop you. Little stoic, we actually don't have any ill intentions towards you. If you had any ill intentions, you would all be beheaded by now. The little stoic thought to herself and harumphed. She turned around and walked 2 steps before suddenly turning back and shouting, Where's that old man? Fuck, Heavenly Law interrupted her midway, and she even forgot about Mao Yang, that damn old man. Now, that old man had actually disappeared. Most likely, he was afraid of Sir Jojo's Antmaster and took advantage of the chaos to slip away. What a shameless old man. He actually ran away when he couldn't beat them? Wasn't he jumping around very happily earlier? Speaking of which, little Antmaster had interfered in the worldly affairs of this place and suppressed the harpies with unequal strength. To the heavenly Tao, this matter had indeed crossed the line. It could not be repeated. If she still wanted to summon her master and martial uncle over next time, she definitely couldn't offend the heavenly Tao this time. Everything had to be done slowly and steadily, right? Little Treasure. Little Defiant stretched out 2 fingers and pinched the little girl's cheeks. He smiled and said, I remember that you have a blood-trace demon dragon by your side. Where is it now? His eyes were like electricity as he stared at the four-winged lightning dragon. What a ridiculous baby. That's an ancient dragon. When it grows up, it will be more powerful than all beasts in the world. It's very powerful. The little stoic expressionlessly replied with an "oh." Against the Sky couldn't help but be very curious when he saw her listless appearance. What's wrong, child? It couldn't be that someone was blind and stole your little dragon, right? As he spoke, Against the Sky even glanced at Fan Meng and the others with an extremely intimidating gaze. He hastily pulled Fan Meng and the others back a few steps and waved her hand, saying, Old senior, why would we steal the little stoic's things? I reckon you guys wouldn't dare either. Against the Sky harumphed and turned to look at his aunt-nephew. Be good and tell Aunt Master what happened. Where's your ancient dragon? The little stoic disdainfully grabbed the blood-traced demon dragon from the star domain. Chapter 4636. The little stoic shook her frail little body and said dispiritedly, You're talking about this? Aunt Master. Defiant nodded repeatedly with a smile and rubbed the little dragon's head. How did you make little Master angry? The blood-patterned demonic dragon was adorably dazed. It looked up with its round eyes and foolishly stared at Defiant in front of it before glancing at its master. The little stoic threw it back into the star domain in disdain and said with a worried expression, Aunt Master, do you have a stronger beast? The kind that's sturdier than a small mountain, can run faster than a giant eagle, can pounce on a ferocious beast, and can shake the earth with a roar? Defiant chuckled. Yo, it seems this little fellow disdained that blood-patterned demonic dragon for being too weak. This was truly a heaven-defying act. The blood-patterned demonic dragon was one of the most powerful ancient dragon species. It had to be known that after the blood-patterned demonic dragon entered the growth stage, its body could reach several hundred meters in length. Its dragon scales were incomparably hard and impenetrable to swords and sabers. Aunt Master refined a lot of nutrient fluid for beasts and beast tags. It's very effective for the growth of demonic beasts with bloodlines. If you feed the blood-patterned demonic dragon a mouthful every day, it'll definitely enter the growth stage in less than 3 months. The little stoic's eyes brightened. At that time, it won't look like an earthworm anymore. An earthworm? The corners of Defiant's eyes twitched uncontrollably. Looking at his Aunt Master's serious expression, he nodded in amusement. Yes, Aunt Master. Then quickly give me that nutrient fluid. The little stoic hugged her little Aunt Master and clamored. She had to make the little lousy dragon a bit stronger, a bit stronger. Defiant nodded and took off a slender bangle that glowed with a lotus-pink luster from his wrist, slipping it onto the little stoic's wrist. Patting her small hand, Defiant said, It's all inside. The nutrient fluids taken by humans and beasts are categorized. Take a look when you take it. The little stoic's eyes brightened. Just as she was about to speak, her footsteps suddenly halted, and she took out a jade communication talisman from her sleeve. There was a line of small words written on it. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Come quickly. The little fellow was instantly delighted. Although her expression didn't change, her tone was very brisk. Aunt Master, let's go. I'll take you to the sea. Qin Nitian's gossipy nature was instantly aroused by the little stoic, and he nodded repeatedly. Okay, let's go. Xiao Bao, it's not easy for us to get together. Let's put these messy things aside and have a good chat with your martial uncle. Arbor nodded repeatedly. He moved a land whale out of the star field, carried his youngest martial uncle, jumped onto the whale's back, and left immediately. Fan Meng and the others looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Tens of thousands of mutated harpies who had been dipped in poison had died in the realm of forgetfulness, and they had to give an explanation. But speaking of which, this martial uncle of the little stoics that she had never met before was truly quite impressive. A prideful master like Mao Yang was actually worthless in front of that person. At this big guy's moving so fast in the sea. Little Uncle Master sat on the land whale and fiddled around. He said happily, Little treasure, This big fellow looks cumbersome, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. It's even faster than this when it's walking on land. In the distance, he saw a 3-story ship anchored there. Defiant narrowed his eyes and sized up that ship. TSK, what an extravagant origin restoration tool. Arbor saw a tall figure standing at the ship's bow in the distance. Chapter 46:37. Ant Master, let's go. Arbor picked up little Ant Master and stored the land whale into the star domain the instant they took off. Nian Tian, is this child addicted to dragging me around? The little stoic carried Sir Qin Nian Tian and landed on the deck of crimson firmament blue waves. Whoosh! A large group of people hastily surrounded them and shouted at the same time, "Jojo, are you all right? Jojo, why are you so disobedient? Why did you sneak off on your own?" "Duan, you knows," Arbor said with a straight face. "Jojo, you didn't encounter any danger when you went deep into the enemy camp, right? Even if you're going into a tiger's den, you should bring some people with you. Isn't that so? What if something happens when you go in alone? How do you want us to live?" "Duan, you knows." The little stoic repeated and looked up at the man who was silently standing outside the crowd and looking at her expressionlessly. Feeling inexplicably guilty, the little stoic pattered over with her face plastered to her cheeks. "You didn't tell everyone." Duan, you swept her a chilly glance. "I told them that you didn't listen to me and insisted on going deep into the enemy camp alone." Sir Jojo was embarrassed. "I messaged you and told you I had a trump card. Where's the trump card?" Duan, you looked at her with a sarcastic smile. "You're going to become a little con man if you keep tricking people." "Trump card?" Arbor hastily turned around and patted the crowd behind him. Make way, make way, make way. Ant Master, Ant Master." The little stoic squeezed through the crowd and saw little Niantian standing nearby with his hands behind his back with a solemn expression. She inexplicably felt that little Ant Master was simply too adorable like this. Arbor wanted to laugh inwardly and ran over to pick up the little girl. He quickly walked back to Duan Yu's side and waved the little girl in front of everyone. "Here, my trump card is here." I summoned it with a saint-grade deity inviting talisman. Everyone's eyes fell on Qin Nitian. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. "Jojo, where did you find this kid? Did you pick it up from a sea?" "What do you mean I picked it up?" Arbor quickly raised his hand and patted the back of Qi Xuanxuan's hand twice. "Don't spout nonsense. This is my martial uncle. Hurry up and call him martial uncle. Don't be so rude." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Little Ant Master sized up the group of people in front of him with a serious expression. While everyone was looking at her, she was also evaluating the strength and cultivation of these juniors. His Excellency Qin Nitian suddenly raised his small hand, and a ball of light landed on the railing beside him, making a loud sound. Everyone jumped in fright. Arbor's hands trembled as he hugged his little martial uncle. He hurriedly shouted, "Martial uncle, don't ruin it. This is my boat, don't damage it." What a sturdy hull. His Excellency Qin Nitian, who was done with his destructive experiment, quickly kicked his legs. "Child, hurry and let your martial uncle down." Everyone, why did they feel that the situation in front of them and this conversation sounded so strange and out of place? Arbor let go of his hand. His Excellency Qin Nitian landed on the ground and scampered to the railing. He jumped up and touched here and there. He thought to himself, "I used 30% of my strength just now, but it didn't even leave a scratch on this boat. It can be seen how strong this origin returning tool's defense is. My child is indeed a child with great fortune." Chapter 46:38. To think that Xian Huang, that brat, would nag at her all day long. No matter what, she didn't know how Baby was doing over there. She didn't know if he was bullied. Baby was so stoic and inarticulate. Even if he was bullied or wrongly accused, he wouldn't open his mouth to defend himself and would only silently get angry her ears were about to grow calluses from listening to her nagging every day. She was worried all day long and felt that Baby really wasn't doing well, especially the first 2 times they parted in a hurry. He even saw that little treasure was seriously injured and fell out with that old geezer, Heavenly Tao, several times. He wanted to tear open space and come over, but he was stopped. Even though that old geezer, Heavenly Tao, shamelessly guaranteed that little treasure was completely fine, he couldn't set his mind at ease until he saw it with his own eyes. This time, he saw it with his own eyes. Seeing that this child had so many friends supporting her, His Excellency Qin Nitian instantly felt like his child had finally grown up and knew how to make friends. His Excellency Qin Nitian thought in his heart. Uncle Master, Arbor hastily walked to the railing and glanced curiously at his Uncle Master. What was wrong with Uncle Master? Why was she hanging by the railing and touching it? What was she touching? His Excellency Qin Nitian landed on the ground and coughed lightly. This origin restoration weapon, you guys call it a holy weapon, right? Where did you get this holy weapon from, child? An old grandpa insisted on giving it to me on the way, so I accepted it. Everyone, His Excellency Qin Nitian, why did he feel like this child was talking about a fantasy story? I gave him a large jug of wine, so it should be considered an exchange, right? Arbor pondered and said, His Excellency Qin Nitian, why did he suddenly not want to talk to this little imp? The little stoic ran to her Uncle Master's side and reflexively picked her up. Uncle Master, what do you want to say? You guys get off the ship first. I'll refine this holy weapon for you. It can increase its speed by 2 times, increase the flow of time by 12 times, and enhance the power of space. Everyone simultaneously widened their eyes and looked at this 5 to 6-year-old Uncle Master next to the little stoic as if they were looking at a god. It was hard to imagine that this martial uncle could actually refine and modify a natural sacred artifact based on its foundation. The little stoic's eyes brightened, and she casually asked, Aunt Master, do you have any handwritten copies of secret manuals on refining? You know how to refine artifacts? Arbor shook his head. No. Aren't you going to learn? Arbor shook his head again. My husband is here. What he meant was that she didn't need to worry about refining armaments anymore. Against the Sky looked around and asked, Where's the young man I saw last time? Martial nephew and son-in-law. Shouldn't they meet each other properly before beating them up? Uncle Master, he's in seclusion. Against the Sky lifted his small paw to rub the little stoic's head. Go look for it in the space bracelet I gave you just now. I should have thrown it inside. So the bracelet contained more than just potions? The little crown princess nodded happily. All right then. By the way, Martial Uncle, how long will it take you to refine it? It will take about 6 hours. Then how about we sail the ship back to our island first, and then you can slowly refine it. My family Xiao Bao is already a great island owner. His Excellency Qin Nitian exclaimed with sparkling eyes. The little stoic was embarrassed. It's just a run-down, deserted island, Aunt Master. Qi Xian Xian and the others all gathered around with a whoosh. Chapter 4639. Jojo, is this really your Aunt Master? Yes, Aunt Master. Arbor nodded and glanced at Qi Xian Xian. You even hugged her thigh before. Did you forget? Our dear Qi Xian Xian was dumbfounded. When did I hug such a small child's thigh? It's that golden statue. Oh, realization dawned on Qi Xian Xian. It's the golden statue? So that's why. That golden statue is Jojo's Aunt Master and Master. Jojo seemed to have mentioned it before. Mata chimed in. The crowd once again fell into a lively discussion. His Excellency Qin Nitian joyfully looked at the children around him, genuinely happy for his little treasure. Looking at how energetic these children were, his little treasure would definitely become livelier and more cheerful in the future with friends like this. Her facial paralysis would be completely cured, right? Evidently, this Excellency's vision for his aunt-nephew's future was too perfect when Arbor saw a bunch of people surrounding his Aunt Master and chatting happily. He silently retreated and quickly ran to Duan Yu's side. He coughed lightly and asked, Are we really going to capture Mu Qingya and the others? Before that, shouldn't you properly explain to me? Why won't you listen to me? Our dear Duan Yu looked at her with a sardonic smile and didn't give her a chance to change the topic. Speak. Sir Jojo rubbed his fingers together and muttered softly, I already said I'm confident. Oh. Arbor quickly looked up and muttered, yes. I didn't think I would be able to summon Ant Master over. She expected to summon a mighty figure above the venerated immortal realm in the holy region. He might not be able to eliminate everyone on the enemy's ship, but he should be more than enough to ensure her safety. Thankfully, she summoned Ant Master Nitian over this time. After all, when she was attacked by tens of thousands of harpies, if it weren't for Ant Master holding the fort and insta-killing them, she would have suffered for sure. This means my luck is pretty good. This was what the little stoic thought in her mind. Duan poked her forehead and said aloofly, do you still think your luck is pretty good? Since I was able to summon Martial Uncle this time, I can still take the risk like this next time, right? The little stoic decisively shook her head and sincerely admitted her mistake. I won't be so impulsive next time. You're right. I will definitely listen to you. This little rascal actually took the initiative to admit his mistake so decisively, causing Duan's belly full of complaints and words of reprimand to be stuck in his throat just like that. The little fellow was too quick-witted. As a result, he couldn't say anything else. Pooh! Feng Zhongqing coughed lightly and said with a smile, well, since the Saintess already knows her mistake, I think we can probably skip this admonishment process. You're too shameless. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal shook his head helplessly. Just now, they had agreed to teach the little stoic a lesson together. However, in less than 3 sentences, some of them immediately changed sides. Feng Zhongfei cried out, forget it, forget it. She already admitted her mistake, so stop nagging. Sir Jojo suddenly felt that Feng Zhongfei was especially pleasing to the eye today. She glanced at him approvingly and hastily added, actually, I wasn't completely defenseless. Besides the sacred grade deity inviting talisman, I also brought a bottle of spirit-governing pills. This spirit-governing pill was a pill produced by a 5-color treasure beast. Taking 1 pill every month could imperceptibly improve one's divine conscious. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.